What's up, guys? This is Maxwell Media Inc. I'm your host, Maxwell, and I'm here to hit you with a disclaimer. So, the way that this panel was filmed is we were all on Discord, and I had a condenser mic, and I was speaking in the condenser mic. I kind of don't necessarily, I'm kind of new to this. I don't necessarily know, like, if I should be speaking into the mic or I should be here, I can pick up my voice. I don't know. So, I need to test that out. I need to, like, experiment with that. But everybody else on Discord, because I used OBS to record the Discord call, it was very, like, their audio was very low. When I looked at it, it was very, like, soft, couldn't really hear them. So, I used audio gate and editing to make them louder, but since my voice was already loud and clear, kind of fucked it up. It kind of fucked it up. So it made my voice extremely loud. Like, it's too loud. My voice is way too loud on this thing. The way I'm gonna edit it. So, whenever it's me talking, you know what my voice sounds like, and you're obviously gonna hear it because I'm so fucking loud. Whenever you hear my voice, just like lower. I'm sorry you have to do this. I'm really sorry. Just lower the audio when I talk. When everyone else talks, it's gonna be normal. So turn it up, and you can hear them normally. But I'm just really sorry that it was edited this way. I'm really sorry that it was filmed this way. I'm gonna try to do better next time. The next time we do a panel. But yeah, please enjoy. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please do all that shit. Follow everybody in this panel on Twitter because they're awesome. And yeah, just this disclaimer, just a disclaimer. But yeah, sorry you guys have to deal with that. I'm really sorry. But anyway, on to the panel.
All here.
All right, and we're off. We're recording. So, what's up, guys? This is Maxwell Media Inc. I'm your host, Maxwell, and today I have a panel of people, and we're gonna sit here and watch me eat fast food and talk about shipping, specifically RWBY shipping. So, everybody, introduce yourselves.
I'll go first. Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Flynn. Nice to be here.
All right, cool. We love you,
Oh,
Peter.
yes,
Thank you for being here.
I'm Dad Xiao Long. Hi, or you can call me James. I'm happy to be here,
Happy to have you.
and I love chips. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Ali from Twitter, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to gush about shipping.
Happy to have you, Allie.
I'm Kelsey, and pretty much the same. I love shipping, I love ships, and happy to be here.
All right, cool. So I wanted to kind of start off with kind of like why what is it that you love about shipping? What makes it fun for you?
I can go first.
Yeah.
So honestly, in the beginning, I wasn't much of a shipper. Overall, I think outside of RWBY and a couple of shows, I'm not much of a shipper. But RWBY, I feel like in a way, it's really unique. Like, first of all, of course, there are the ship names which are unique in their own ways, but the fan base itself is so dedicated. Like, the ships themselves are really fun. There are a lot of ships that explore a lot of different interesting dynamics, and it's fun to see the people who are so invested in their ships, why they're invested. A lot of people see themselves in the relationships of the people. I myself just overall like so let's say there's this character that I love, and then there's another character that I love, and I see, oh, they can make each other happy, so they'll be even happier together. So
Yeah.
that basically makes me happy myself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much kind of like the gist of it. Like, especially with the RWBY fan base, I feel like everyone is everyone's just so involved because I think a lot of that has to do with like Rooster Teeth and how Rooster Teeth is kind of like they're a company, but like they just feel everything just feels so personal. Like, even like, even though we don't know these people, we feel like we know these people. So it just makes perfect sense why like the movie community just feels so like kind of like home a little bit. Not to sound sappy, but kind of like home a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, yeah, Peter, what about you? Why do you love shipping?
I don't know. I really got into shipping, like, ironically around the time RWBY came out, because, like, I'm assuming most of us come from like other shows and whatnot that we've watched in the past, but I never really understood what shipping was until I got into Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that was more or less my first like exposure to what the concept of a ship was. And so I was thinking like, okay, well, I think I get the hang of this now. And then jump years later to Ruby, but like earlier volumes, like volumes 1, 2, or 3, or et cetera, and I was completely blown away by the amount of just quantity of ships there are in the show. Like I don't know if you guys saw this, but recently, Neptune just made like a an equivalency thread, like saying something nice about like any of the ships, and it blew me away just how many ships there were in this show. I didn't even recognize half of them in the thread.
Yeah, because like there's so many characters, like there's so many options you could have.
It's sort of like it's almost kind of like a smorgasbord of like ship flavors. Like it's like ice cream. There's like 13 different flavors of whatever ship you want, and that's just for one character if you try hard enough.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think the thing that makes me interested in it is that there's just so much of it, and you don't see that from a lot of other shows. Like normally in some shows, you'll get like maybe 1, 2, or 3 ships, maybe even 5 if you're lucky across all the cast. But that's even for the main cast. But with RWBY, it's like everyone gets a ship. Like the side characters get ships, the people in the books get ships, the people in like the comics get ships. Like everybody has a ship.
yeah. It's wonderful. It's really fun. Um, let's go to James. Like, how do you feel? Like, why do you love the shipping?
I think in RWBY the shipping is great because every character has such a different personality. So it's really cool to see like rare pairs and how they would interact with each other. Because we all have our mains. I
Yeah,
think a lot of us like Bumblebee.
yeah. We love the bees.
We love the bees mostly because that's what the show's pushing. But then you have other ships like Freezer Burn and then Ladybug and just so many other ones. And then you're like, how would they interact with each other if they were in a relationship? How would that start? And I think people can get very creative with it. And
Yeah,
that's mostly what I love about it.
yeah. Okay. Last but not least, how do you feel about shipping?
Well, I think everybody already said what everything they can say about
Yes.
shipping, but I think one
Hold on a
thing.
second. Sorry, my sister wanted something. But yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
Yes, but well, what I was saying is that oh, oof,
Oof.
uh, everybody kind of already said it, but I think one thing will be do well is that every character has a ship. Even minor characters, you have a story, you have ship for a character you see only on a flashback in volume 6. Uh, and I think it's pretty fantastic and interesting because you like a character and you say to yourself, yeah, that character is great, that other character is also great. So what if I take them together? They're going to be better, and that's what I like about shipping.
Awesome, awesome. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like you just said. Everyone kind of voiced like good points. I guess for me, it's like I really like character development, and I feel like relationships really propel characters forward. Like they give characters things and people to like fight for, and it gives the relation. It gives like everything more stakes. It's like, okay, yeah, you can save someone, but like you're gonna care more if it's like your girlfriend or whatever. So I don't know, I just
Yeah.
feel like it really enhances the story. But yeah, I kind of wanted to kind of discuss different like aspects of shipping. So like, I guess we can start with like, the fun stuff. Like, what are the favorites? Like, who for Ruby? Like, what is your? Let's go around. Like, what is your top ship basically? Like, what is your OTP?
Um, I'll start. So like, I think I wanted to say something about the aspects of shipping because there, I think there are like two different types of shipping. There's like what's going on in the canon, and then what you just like to like, like just random ships that everyone loves. So like in canon, and the reason why it's so big, Bumblebee is like my favorite. But then like out of canon, it's like I love Freezer Burn. I like Baked Alaska. I basically like anything with Yang, just because I love Yang.
Yang is great.
Same.
Yang is great.
I
think it
love
goes-
her so much.
I think it goes without saying which ship is my favorite. I don't keep it a secret.
Cinnabon.
Oh, absolutely. This is like a personal bias for me, but I have a major soft affinity for like very like shy and quiet spoken characters just falling for like the giant, like the big guy that has a heart of gold, and that's why Velvet and Yatsuhashi kind of scratch that itch for me.
Oof.
But even though Cinnabunny is my quintessential OTP, I would be lying if I didn't say that I'd be open to the possibility of Crosshair as well, because god dang it, Velvet deserves to be happy.
She really does. She's like literally everything.
Yeah.
She's everything. Best character in the whole show. If we get to like Bakuo and we don't get enough Velvet, I'm gonna riot.
Same.
You and me both, Max.
Like, Velvet is. I mean, this is a whole nother discussion, but Velvet is a character that I feel like the books did a really good job with her like characterization and like how she interacts with other people. And I just thought it was really interesting how when I think in After the Fall we see how she meets Yatsuhasi and she was like so scared of him because he's like this big human guy and she's like, oh, is he gonna fuck me up, he's gonna like beat me up, and like Yatsuhashi just like surprised her because he's a decent person and he. So I just think that's really cute. I'm definitely a fan of that ship.
I'm also a big fan of like say the if we're talking about like going in further specifically for canon versus non-canon. This is why I have a soft spot for what's that Mercury and Yang ship? I can't remember the name of it.
Is that Enabler?
Gauntlets and Greaves.
Yeah, Gauntlets and Griefs. Thank you.
Oh, oof. I don't know what Enabler is then.
That's one of my favorite non-canon ships because I don't see it happening at all, like logistically. But like I have a huge soft spot for like initial like rivalry between two people, and then just like they grow to like sort of tolerate each other in that sense of like I hate you, but I still love you. But I still
Yeah,
love
like White Rose.
Enemies to the
Queens.
Oof.
Oh, I love White Rose.
White Rose is like, let's talk about White Rose for a minute. I was talking to someone the other day about it, and it may have been one of you. I don't know. I have a really horrible memory, but I was talking about how before everyone knows that Bumblebee is like the most popular ship in the fandom right now. But before it was Bumblebee, like because I first got into the fandom around when Volume 4 was airing, and during that time it was White Rose. White Rose was the ship. Everybody was talking about White Rose. Like it was, and there wasn't much to go off of. It was just that like Ruby and Weiss had a lot of development. But like after Volume 4 and the Bumblebee song came out and Bumblebee started like picking up momentum, people just like stopped talking about White Rose, and I'm like, why are we not talking about White Rose anymore? It's still a very good ship, and I just feel like now currently it just really goes underappreciated because Weiss and Ruby like really they really just did a lot for each other, but then no one really like recognizes that.
Yes. It's really weird because in Volume 6, the intro had them like picking each other up, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, wonderful. And then Volume 7 comes around and they don't talk.
Yeah, we don't get much Ruby Rice interaction. It feels like we're kind of going in the Rose Garden direction.
I have my
See,
thoughts
for
on.
me, yeah. Honestly, I used to love White Rose a lot. It was actually my OTP in the early volumes. I remember that. But for whatever reason, I just had a falling out in volume 6 with them, and I actually prefer. I feel like in volume 4, I started to love Lancaster. You know, John and Ruby. I feel like
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
that's even though obviously it won't happen. Like, I feel like that was actually confirmed that John and Ruby won't be together. I don't know if I remember correctly, but I think that someone said that. No, I think that Miles had to come out in Volume 4 and make it clear
Yeah.
that the scene between John and Ruby wasn't romantic. You know, when John
Yeah.
slapped her.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that scene really just made me love them, especially because of this whole I don't know, dynamic of two leaders. In the beginning, John was down about himself, about him being a bad leader, and Ruby picked him up. In Volume
Yeah.
4, Ruby thought she was a bad leader, and John picked her up. And I guess I just started to like him. And then in Volume 6, I think that it had nothing to do with the ship itself. I think I had some problems with White Rose shippers, and I had a falling out with the ship itself. Like, honestly, I actually, in itself, I think it's a great ship. Like, it's opposite attracts. There's the rival. There are rivals. And in theory, I like it's a really good ship. But I just had a falling out with it, and that's why I usually don't talk about it anymore.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I feel like White Rose is like the kind of ship where it was it's similar. I don't know if anyone in here watches My Hero Academia, but it's similar to
I do.
the what's I don't know the name. I don't know if they have a name. I don't know if My Hero Academia names their ships like Ruby names their ships, but it's like
They don't. They don't.
Bakugo and Deku. I don't know what that ship is called, but it's not the same, but it's very similar to where like one is very antagonistic, and another one is like more like I'm shy, I'm passive, but like I'm nice to everyone.
I actually really like Bakudeku because it's basically enemies to friends to lover, and that's my favorite trope for me. Like, I love that
Dora.
trope. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Baku Deku like I don't know. It just does something for me. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about it, but for some reason, like from the moment I started watching My Hero Academia, I was like, okay, I know what's going on here. He's bullying Deku because he likes Deku. Like that's what it is. I and you can't change my mind.
Let's see.
But yeah, I guess back to Ruby. Yeah, I don't know. I was just talking about how White Rose just kind of like went under the radar once Bumblebee started picking up, steam. And I don't know. I guess it's kind of like this weird sort of thing where people feel like there can only be one like major like gay ship at a time,
Oh,
which I don't really
Yeah.
agree with. I mean, I feel like there you should
no,
be
it's
able
not
to have
necessary.
multiple, prominent like LGBT
Yeah.
ships.
I
Yeah.
think it's really bad when people do that when they're like, because I've seen tweets where people are like, well, only one can happen, guys, and it's like, don't make the White Rose and Bumblebee shippers fight. Like,
Yeah, like we can
they've
all
been a
exist in
team for so
harmony.
long.
I
Yeah.
They
remember
would be happy.
I remember this. I remember bringing this up with a buddy of mine, and I don't know. Like, I think we came to one conclusion that I don't even know how we got to this conclusion, but it was sort of like it's normal to have like a handful of like homosexual or like same sex ships. Like no one bats an eyelash if there's like one or two. But then when you start getting into like 4, 5, and 6, and upwards of 10 all being confirmed, like he mentioned that like that's the point where you like kind of like need to raise your eyebrow and be like, okay, this is a bit abnormal, but I mean, if you like that stuff, then more power to you.
There's
I,
nothing
I
abnormal
yeah.
with gay ships, though. Like the thing is
Yeah.
Ruby takes place in a whole different world and with completely different. We don't know how humans genetically work. We don't know. So and there's no homophobia, so people are gonna just like who they like. So it's completely fine that there's gonna be more gay ships and straight ships because it's honestly better because they're both normal. Like and I don't think anyone in RWBY is specifically straight either. Like, there's no confirmation. You don't live in a world where it's pushed to be straight, like that's the quote unquote normal relationship. But being gay and having a bunch of gay ships in a show isn't anything to raise eyebrows about, unless you think there's like some kind of SJW conspiracy, but that's just me.
I feel like part of the eyebrow raising is the fact that like it's not really common. Like you don't really have shows like that.
And
Normally, the
that's sad.
formula for these shows
Yeah.
is like, oh, we'll put one, maybe two at the most. LGBT ships in there, and that'll be your representation. But I feel like life, like actual real life, isn't necessarily like that because it kind of paints the picture that in life there's a group of straight people and then there's maybe one or two LGBT people, but in actuality, like if you're an LGBT person, more than likely most of your friends are gonna be like you. So it would make sense that like
Yes.
you would have a bunch of people who are like kind of like the same in that aspect. So I mean, I understand why it would be eyebrow raising, but I don't feel like it should change the overall integrity of the show or the plot of the show, basically.
I mean, look
I mean-
at you,
That's what I want to say. Thank you.
brain cell.
There was a really good quote recently. I've been reading this book called Manga in Theory and Practice by the author that made the JoJo manga. And there was a really cool excerpt I have pulled up right here that he talks about the differences between men and women in his own work. And when he informs authors about it, he says, quote, "It's purely a matter of your own personal taste." He points to one character that he gender swapped from JoJo Part 4 and then made them a female in Part 8 because he wanted to explore different elements of like what it means to be, I guess you can say like friends to someone. Because in Part 4, for those that have seen, Koichi Hirose was a dude, so he wanted to explore like that romance type stuff. Like I got your back and I'm your best friend. But when he changed Koichi into Yasuo Hirose, he wanted to explore elements of romantic love. So the foundation is still there, but he said, it's pretty much just a matter of your own personal taste. And he goes on to say, so long as the world makes sense, you can theoretically have a manga with no male cast members in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like gender abolitionists, this is a little bit political, but it's basically like, there is no genders, everyone is just who they are. Like, sex and gender aren't the same thing. So it makes sense because that's like a world that we seem to be coming to, is that everyone is just allowed to be who they are. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, or if you're something else, you're going to be represented the same way. And honestly, people are people. Like, there's no, like, you have to write a man like this, or you have to write a woman like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me of how I don't speak Greek. I have no like language of that, but I know that like they have different words for different types of love, like eros and agape and philia and the different types of love, and it kind of just reminds me that people, and it doesn't really matter what your gender is, people can express love and it doesn't necessarily have to always be romantic. Like men, straight men or whatever, can say I love you, and they can say this and that, and they can express that they care about each other and stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything. Kind of like in Volume 6 when, John is crying over the Pyrrha statue, and, Rena's like, listen, bro, this has to stop. Like, this isn't healthy anymore. It's time to get back on track. I don't know, it really opens your eyes to, the complexities of people, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one thing, Max, that you said a couple minutes ago about White Rose sort of like kind of dying down in terms of discussion when Rose Garden started popping up in the woodworks, and it got me thinking, like, is there such a thing as like ships sort of being, I guess you can say, you know, I don't want to use the word co-opted, but you know, some ships just innately become more popular or more or less steal the fame away from other prominent ships that were perfectly fine to begin with.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like definitely when Bumblebee came on the scene in terms of being more popular, White Rose definitely died down. And this isn't to like blame Bumblebee shippers or whatever, but I just feel like part of it is just kind of that that kind of mindset of there can only be one LGBT ship at a time. But I also think part of it is like because I talk about this with Bumblebee a lot. Bumblebee is one of my top two ships in RWBY, but I feel like with Bumblebee, it's one of those ships that obviously there's a lot of controversy around Bumblebee, but I feel like it's one of those things that since there is a lot of acknowledgement from Rooster Teeth about Bumblebee, I feel like it kind of gives people the illusion of more validity. And what I mean by that is like if the RWBY official Twitter account, you know, post a Bumblebee meme or they feature Bumblebee in their Valentine's Day promo, or you know, if Barb or Aaron or whatever is like, oh my god, we love Bumblebee, it's so cute. Like that acknowledgement from people who work on the show and that are in on the show and know what's gonna happen before we know what happens. I feel like when stuff like that comes from them, people are like, "Oh, okay, so this is canon, this is the thing," and you know, people are going to take something that is canon or that they think is canon more seriously than they're gonna take, you know, something that's not as canon. Like for example, Sun and Ruby. I like Sun and Ruby because I think it's cute that their voice actors are married. I think that's cute. But like people are not going to take that as seriously as, you know, a Bumblebee because, you know, they don't talk about, you know, I don't know what their ship would be called, but they don't really talk about Sun and Ruby. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's a thing of like
banana?
strawberry banana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute. I could have. I guess I should have just assumed that because, you know, I don't know. I don't feel like it's a thing of like one ship is just gonna take the shine of another ship. I feel like when certain ships were given more validation by the people who work on the show, it kind of makes people take that ship more seriously. If that makes sense.
And
It's also the
and I
point
don't
of
think
what.
it's necessary. You can go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I don't think it's necessarily only the validity from other people from outside. It's the fact that if you look at the scenes in the show from Bumblebee, right? I don't think there is any denial, at least in Volume 7, that there is romantic tension between them. Whereas as you look at White Rose, there are still people who can say that the scenes between Ruby and White are just like friends. You know, like there is more subtext to White Rose, and Bumblebee is more obvious. It's the same with Renora, and it's the same way even Renora and Black Sun are more popular in themselves than White Rose. It's because they are more obvious towards the fact that the characters have romantic romantic feelings towards each other. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas White Rose is basically subtext.
Yeah.
Subtext.
What were you gonna say, Kosi?
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Okay. I guess since we're on the topic, let's dive into Bumblebee a little bit. Bumblebee is one of those ships, like, it started off really innocent. It started off really like, okay, this is cute, like black and yellow, like Bumblebee. And then once like the song came out, I tweeted about this 2 days ago or yesterday, I think. Then the song came out, you know, on the Volume 4 soundtrack. And it kind of like took off from there. And I really love that song. I think it's so sweet. I really love it. But what I saw, like when that song came out, was, you know, of course you have people that are excited about it, but then you have people that are like, oh, well, the songs aren't really canon. The songs are just kind of like them having fun. And it was kind of like people kind of downplaying like the song and what it means. And I had a beef with that because I feel like, when the Renora songs come out, or when, the Arco songs come out, or the Black Sun songs come out, there's no like, oh, well, it's not really canon. Like, oh, they just make the songs for fun. But when the Bumblebee song comes out, it's, oh, well, Jeff and Casey, like, they don't write the show. Like, oh, like, their songs are just kind of for fun. So I feel like that's where Bumblebee started, and that's kind of when the anti-Bumblebee stuff kind of started to, pop up.
The song is
Definitely.
about Yang and her bike.
As someone who's been in the fandom since day one, when the show first came out, I would say that Bumblebee first started getting traction really, really big after Volume 3. And then that's when the song came out in Volume 4, after Volume 4, Bumblebee. And in that time, the reason there was a lot of stuff going on in the show because Blake wasn't with Yang, she was with Sun. And they seemed to be growing in a relationship as well. I see it always as more of a brother and sister, best friend relationship than anything. But we start seeing like Sun's making Blake a better person in season 4 and 5, and that made a lot of. I think in that I don't. In that time, there was a lot of toxicity between Black Sun and Bumblebee, and I think that nowadays there is not a lot of toxic Black Sun shippers. I think those toxic Black Sun shippers have now just become antis of RWBY in general because they were only there for their ship or something like that. And so, I mean, I remember watching a YouTube video where the guy said that Bumblebee the song was just a generic love song that could fit with anyone and fit more with Black Sun than it did Bumblebee.
What?
Yes, he was very terrible. And then I'm remembering, like, this is the same guy who then says that Not Falling in Love with You is a Black Sun song when it isn't, it's just a love song, been confirmed by the things. And then he's going to say that when the song doesn't talk about anyone in the show. But Bumblebee specifically, like, lays out their relationship about I'm bringing you, like, I'm your sunshine, and you're, like, all sad and gloomy, but we make each other happy.
Yeah, that I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. That's kind of what I'm talking about in the sense of like, I don't know. I just really rubbed me the wrong way when the song came out and everyone was kind of like trying to downplay it, but they don't do it for like Black Sun songs or Renora songs or Arco songs. So I don't know. I get because I don't know because again I came into the fandom during Volume 4, so I don't really know what the fandom was really like pre Volume 4. So that's kind of when I started first saying that like all of the anti Bumblebee, sort of stuff.
Yes, that's when it
Honestly,
first a little bit
yeah.
started happening.
But here's the thing, like with both Not Fall in Love with You and BNBLB, like first of all, Not Fall in Love with You is it was confirmed by Jeff that it was basically an old song that he had with an old band, and he was like, oh, okay, this would be fun if he put it in the RWBY soundtrack, and he just put it in there. So it wasn't official. It wasn't an official song. But neither was BNBLB. Like, it was made with the intent of Blake and Yang, but Jeff said that he did it just for fun. It was something that they put in the last minute. So I can see why people downplayed the song. Because Jeff himself came out and said, this is just fun. It's not something to confirm the ship that is canon. It's just fun, So I see why people said that.
I think you could say that about any song, though, is that, well, he's just making it for fun. Because no song is specifically canon. Like, Red Lake Roses Part 2, Summer didn't say all that to RWBY. It's like, no song is really, really canon. Some songs talk about the canon, and some songs don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Volume 4 was a bit awkward moment for shippers between Bumblebee and Black Sun, because we had a big Bumblebee moment at the end of Volume 3 with Blake and Young, And then the show kind of take it back and show Blake and Sun going closer, like James said, becoming better person together. And so there was a lot of bitterness on both sides about which ship was going to be on top. And Bumblebee came at that moment. And I think yes, it's because of all the bitterness that you see a lot of Bumblebee shippers that are born at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's at the end of the day, like shipping is about fun, and I feel like that's why the backlash from the song rubbed me the wrong way, because it felt like these people were kind of like stomping on my fun for no reason. Like I'm over here like, yeah, Bumblebee, but they're like, it's not really canon. Like don't read into it. And I don't know, they don't do that with other ships. Like Volume 7 soundtrack, let's get real. Nobody is sitting now, granted they kissed in the show, so you can't really deny it. But like nobody is saying, oh, let's get real, it's just for fun. Like, oh no, let's not read too much into let's get real. But I don't know. I just thought it was a double standard, and I really did not like it.
Yeah. I have my own like weird little pseudo theory that like all this hostility comes from like this surface level of like being validated, but sort of like the like I get to like predict what the show is going to do, and if the show does what I think it's going to predict, then that somehow makes me feel smart.
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel
People
that
think that a lot.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah,
pretty much, like pretty
like
much.
I feel like that's where like a lot of these like Black Sun shippers were kind of like losing the plot initially. Because don't get me wrong, I like Black Sun just as much as the next person in here. I think it's adorable. I love the growing friend. I also have a soft spot for like the growing like sort of friendship style romances where like you get this one dude that's this one person, I guess I could say, because people often this here, and they're just like this super friendly, happy-go-lucky person, and they just feel this innate desire to help someone because it's just the right thing to do, and then the second party involved just starts more and more warming up to the idea that like this person could also be my friend, but because they're going out of their way and going above and beyond for someone like me, then I feel like that it only seems fair that like they would develop feelings for that person.
Yeah, I definitely,
Yeah.
I definitely feel that for Black Sun. I love Black Sun. At some points,
Me
because
too.
I teeter between Black Sun and Bumblebee. Like some days I'm like, it's Bumblebee forever, but some days I'm like, I'm really into Black Sun. But I feel like a lot of Black Sun people, and me, and I'm lumping myself in with this generalization as well. It's kind of drenched in heteronormativity where you see a guy and a girl and they're talking for more than 5 seconds and you're like, okay, well they're gonna get together, they're a ship. And when I was kind of going through my whole Bumblebee thing, I was like, why do I sometimes see it for Black Sun and not for Bumblebee? Well, because if you were let's say Yang is a guy, let's pretend Yang is a guy for a second. If Yang was a guy, like I feel like most people would just assume, okay, Bumblebee is a thing, like they're together, like there's something's gonna happen. But
Definitely.
but
Yes.
since she's a girl, we have to go through all of this like proving stuff and explanations, and in volume 2, like they looked at each other this way instead of this way, and all this like extra stuff. I don't know, I kind of realized my own like heteronormativity kind of coming in that aspect of Bumblebee.
It's also kind of funnier too because this was actually something that happened. Okay, I'm trying to remember. Like, Volume 7 was the one that just finished, and now we're getting into Volume 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, my bad. Like, Volume 7 and 8 are kind of bleeding together for me because they both take place in the same part of the map. But like initially, I don't remember what episode it was, but like when the seeds of like fair game started popping up or started being sown.
Chapter 4. I
Yeah.
remember.
Thank you. Now we have an exact episode. But when I saw the seeds being planted for that ship, there wasn't like it wasn't like with Bumblebee where people were kind of like sort of downplaying it, but yet we're still open to the possibility of it being possible. There was almost this like innate pushback, like not just like the, oh well, we don't think it's going to happen. It was more so like an innate, what are you talking about, you loony? There's no possible conceivable way this will ever be a thing. Where did you even think that?
Oof.
And again, this is Peter Flynn's weird tinfoil hat conspiratorial theory time. But I think it comes down to the notion of like, it's way easier to pitch a lesbian ship than it is like a gay ship.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Actually, my bad. If I remember correctly, it was in Volume 7, Chapter 3, when
Yes.
there was the whole Aesop's versus
Aesop.
Petragiga's fight. And that's because Crow and Clover had that whole conversation in the mines when when Clover basically revealed that his semblance was good luck, and people were like, oh, so here's a person who is affected by Crow's semblance, you know?
Yeah.
Basically, that their semblances would clash together, you know, and there was this whole thing of, finally, someone can make Crow happy, someone Crow can feel comfortable near, because someone Crow wouldn't have to be afraid to be near to hurt them, you know. That's I think where it started, and I can understand why it started. I don't think that people who saw something in it were in the wrong. I think they're completely valid, and I think there was something between them, even though they did say, like, from what Ruby said, it wasn't intentional, but I can't blame the people who saw something in them, you know,
Yeah.
because there was some subtext there.
I think the pushback was also because people were identifying to Crow, saying, "Yeah, I'm cool, I'm Crow, and you can be gay because I'm Crow and I'm gay." That type of stuff, and a lot of people were hostile to Pagam because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I was watching a video on shipping. It came out a couple of months ago, but I feel like a big problem with shipping in the RWBY community is part of it is the show. The show isn't perfect or great when it comes to interaction. Like a lot of times, people who aren't necessarily in a ship together or ship together often, they don't really interact much. Like you don't really see Blake and Ruby hang out and get coffee much. You know what I mean? You don't really see, Ren and Weiss, going down to the bar with Team Funky. You don't really see that. So when people do get to do these things, like when Blake and Yang do get to have a conversation and get deep with each other in a classroom, it's kind of like, oh, there's something more because they're talking to another character for more than 5 seconds, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't get much cross interaction with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like the more, the moments when characters do get to go deep, it feels like there's something more because normally they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that we kind of have to take what we can get because RWBY's runtime is just incredibly tight. Like somewhere between like how many episodes do we get per volume? Like 12?
12 to 13 at the 14 at Volume 5 had the most episodes, and I take that back. Volume 1 had the most episodes.
And now volume 8 will have the most episodes, and I'm actually looking forward to more interactions between the team, between the characters overall in volume 8, because if I'm not mistaken, they said that there will be a lot of focus on characters interacting with each other and seeing team ups we didn't see before.
Mm-hmm.
Like even what we saw from the sneak peek, right? It was Yang, John, Oscar, and Ren.
Yeah, like when do we ever get to see them hang out? Like never. Like never.
Exactly.
It's gonna be very interesting, and with volume 8 coming out, they also have to push like other relationships that need to happen, like because RWBY, the way RWBY is set up, so volume 7 was the setup thing to like set up everyone's arc for the Atlas time that they're in, and it seems like Bees being in a relationship is going to be their whole thing. But we also have Renora, who is falling apart a little bit.
Yeah.
When you have these two relationships, one's trying to bloom and the other one's trying to fix their shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, I just did. But
I mean, go off, sis. I cuss on here all the time. Like I do not care.
They gotta. My idea is, a way that this is going to happen where you get two characters that don't interact, but you also push relationships that need to happen is because, like, we see that they're separate. I think that Ren and Yang will talk about each other's relationship, and so will Nora and Blake, because
I wish.
it's going to be kind of great for them because each of the different person is the other like side to them.
Yeah.
Ren and Blake are both the same, and Nora and Yang are, so they can talk to the other person and give them a new perspective. While the like the Renora person is like, oh hey, like you must really care about her, and they're like, oh ooh, you're right.
Yeah. I think Ren is kind of Ren was in Volume 7. Ren was kind of the proxy for like not anti Bumblebee people, but people who were unsure of Bumblebee, because he was like, maybe they were just really good friends. He's like, maybe they're just good friends or
They're
whatever.
just good friends,
What
and
else could they be?
She likes his bike.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because it's like you can really tell. I mean, Ren doesn't even know he's in a relationship. He's not going to be able to tell if
Yeah.
they're in a relationship.
That's kind of like also an issue I have with the relationships in this show. I don't. Do we have any She-Ra fans here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we love She-Ra. I think me and Ali have had this conversation too a couple of times a long time ago.
Definitely.
I am a big fan of slow burn ships. I like a slow burn. I like when, we have characters kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender with Aang and Katara. Aang and Katara,
Yeah.
you can kind of see the relationship bloom throughout the show. But the difference between Aang and Katara and ships like Bumblebee or Renora, they like talk about, like, it's acknowledged, it's open, like, they're not trying to keep it a secret. I think they talked about it like literally all the time. Like, Aang would get captured and he would have a jailhouse conversation with some criminals, and they'd be like, oh, just talk to her, like, go up and talk to her, I'm sure she'll like you, you're a great guy, or stuff like that. Or Zuko's like, oh, I'm gonna hurt your little girlfriend or whatever. Like, it was acknowledged kind of that Aang had this little crush, even if Katara wasn't aware of it. You know what I mean? And I feel like in the show, like, yes, they have cute little nods, like in Volume 7, but those are like kind of few and far between. And I really, RWBY is the only show that I see that does that. Other shows, when they're kind of building this kind of slow burn romance, they at least acknowledge that one person or both of them have explicit feelings. Because I feel like, for example, with the Adam fight at the end, Blake is crying, because, she just had to kill Adam, and she's breaking down, and Yang is holding her face and, helping her. Everyone was like, that's so cute and romantic. For me, I was like, okay, well, if I helped my best friend, just take down her abuser, and, she was crying, I would do that as well. Like, I would also help her and hug her. So I don't, so it's just like these little actions, and it's just like, okay, but are they doing that because they're in love, or are they doing that because they're decent people and they care about each other? And I don't know. I feel like I need things that are more explicit. Like with Nora saying, hey, talk to me. Like, what is going on, babe? Like, what's going on? I need that. I'm not a fan of the whole, like, let's keep it very ambiguous. Let's not really acknowledge it. I don't like that. I think that's weird.
Oh yeah, like if you're gonna, I've always had the notion of like, if you're gonna go the extra mile and like do something extraordinary, like, buck the trend and have like an actual like homosexual ship, then you should just go full tilt. Like, just be super unapologetic about it. Just get it out of the way. Make it super obvious that this is a thing, and so that way there's absolutely no confusion and there's no arguments over like, oh, you're reading too much into subtext, or you're committing death of the author, you're reading too much into something that isn't there. Any other excuse that someone would probably want.
And again, like I said earlier, sometimes it is on us, it is on the viewer to look past our own heteronormativity. Like for me, I had to pull myself aside, and I said, hey, if Yang was a man and these same things were happening, would you think it was romantic? And the answer for me was yeah. So sometimes, yes, it is on us to like just look past the fog that is heteronormativity. But I feel like it's also on the creators to be like, hi, this is something that we're intentionally doing. Like, people talk about relationships and how relationships work in the real world. If I see a girl, if I see a guy, and I'm like, oh, like, he's hot or she's hot, I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to flirt and we're going to do a thing. But it just feels like in RWBY, it's like, okay, flirting is like saving each other's life from a grim. But like, if you're in this world and you're a huntsman and you're friends, I think anyone would save each other from a grim. Like in the first episode, Blake saves Yang from a grim and everyone applauds like this was a makeout session. But like, I feel like RWBY or Crow or Jean also would have saved Yang from a grim. So you know what I mean? I just feel like we need more coupley things to happen. Like I think we should have seen a little bit of that dance club date. You know what I mean? Rather than
See,
I agree.
I think
Logan says, okay. So, for me, I think that's a problem for RWBY as a whole, not just for ships. It's like you brought Kitara and Aang and Shira, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the thing is for me that Katara and Aang were obvious that they're gonna be a thing from episode 1. Like they had those small moments where Aang was just smiling at Katara, and Katara was like, "Why are you smiling?" And he was just like so dorkish and was like, "Oh, I was smiling." And then with Shira, you have Catradora, where Noelle said herself that she knew she wanted them to be a thing even before the show aired, even before the first season of the show aired. She knew that she wanted Catra and Adora to be a thing. With RWBY, I feel like they basically juggled between both Bumblebee and Black Sun to see how the people react to them, to see on which ship they react strongly more on, And so when they saw that people reacted, a lot of people reacted positively to the end of Volume 6. That's why they decided in Volume 7 now to make it even more obvious that they're gonna be a thing. Hence Nora's line of just friends. Like I feel like right now they're like, oh, okay, finally, we're going to go with this one. We have no more doubts. Now we're going with it, So up until just then, they were juggling between ships, in my opinion, no, because they weren't planning from the beginning all of this stuff. That at least that's how I see it. Stuff. That's how I see it,
I mean, I think though there are things that they have planned from the start. I mean, that's explicitly what they say, and everyone can have their own ideas on if it's true or not. But like, I'm of the opinion of why would they lie? So when they say like Barbara says stuff and Carrie and Miles say stuff, like it was planned from the start.
I'm not saying that they didn't plan anything from the start, because I definitely think that there are a lot of things that were planned from the start, but I don't think that everything, absolutely everything was planned from the start.
I mean, when you have a person like Monty who doesn't write down a lot of notes, you gotta kind of assume after that. But I think another problem is that we're comparing Bumblebee to Catradora and like Aang and Katara, when in those shows, Catradora was kind of the main like plot-ish type of thing. Like it wasn't explicitly always there, but it was always in the background, always like the thing that they were going towards. While Blake and Yang, the thing is that they have like 12 other people that they have to go and show and stuff. And that goes for any ship, like Renora too. It's like they don't have a lot of time for us to see how they're doing. For even like friendships and stuff, like we don't get to see like Ruby and John hanging out in this newer season and stuff like that. And it's and we're comparing a show where they have a smaller cast and their main point is the relationship to RWBY, where yes, I think the main point of the shows are them growing up in their relationships, but they also have to go back to Ruby and Weiss and whatever they're up to, and then the other main plot of Let's Kill Salem. So then when we compare it like that, it's obviously going to look like it's lesser. And I know I keep on talking, but there's one other point that I think needs to be brought up, and it's that in Volume 6, a lot of people were like, okay, if you're gonna do Bumblebee, you should have more moments, like more romantic moments. We get into volume 7. They date. They're on a date. They flirt. They do all this stuff. Now it's forced. I don't know. You want development, but now
That's
it's
tea.
forced.
Ah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Just say you
Oof.
don't like
Okay.
Bumblebee and move on.
Like in hindsight, I can definitely see that. Like the idea of something being forced is that if it implies that like nobody asked for it, but yet you keep giving it to them anyway.
But
That
they
I
asked
think,
for it.
well, that too. But that's what makes Bumblebee different is that like they were testing the waters and they were saying like, okay, let's see which ship is more popular. Is it the cat girl and the monkey dude, or is it going to be these two power lesbians? And then, excuse me, but then apparently the power lesbians won out in the end, and they were like, okay, we'll run with this now. Now we're going to be giving these people what they want. They told us what they want. Now we're giving it to them.
I don't feel like I'm getting what I want though. And like for example with Cachadora, you're right. You're right, James, in the sense of like Cachadora wasn't always explicit, but when they decided, hi, it's season 5, we're going to do Cachadora. I from the minute they started actually doing it, I knew they were doing it because, oops, who did we lose?
I think we lost Allie.
Did we? I'm gonna text her for a second and see what's up.
Oh boy.
Blah. You good? Oof. I texted her, so maybe she'll respond. She's back. She's back.
Yay.
Welcome back to the land of the living.
You good?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
What was I
fine.
saying? Oh yeah, I was talking about Cachadora. Yeah, from the moment like when they were on the ship and stuff, and when Catra was kind of fighting with the Dora over her need to always sacrifice herself. I don't remember the exact line, but she said something to the effect of like, you know, she's never gonna want me, not in the same way that I want her. You know what I mean? Like that's like oof, okay, obvious. Like they're lesbians, they're going with this, they're
I mean,
rolling.
didn't Yang say
And
that to Weiss?
hum?
Like,
That's
I
what.
need her for me in volume 5.
It,
And then they
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think she
made up.
said something like that. But
I
I don't
did
know. I
say
didn't.
at the, because at this day in volume 7, Bumblebee is not canon. They are not a couple. You have some feelings.
Yet.
You had yet. They will be. I think it kind of obvious. But they are just together. They have fun time together. They want to be together, like people who just discover some feeling. I agree with you that at the end of volume 6, it was not a Bumblebee romantic moment. It was just young being young. Blake is crying because she killed the person who abused her all her life. So of course she's going to console her. But I think for once that Bumblebee was planned at least from volume 3, because otherwise I think the end of volume 3 for these two characters doesn't make a lot of sense in the way it's presented. But the only thing I want to say is that as of now, you are going to have exactly what you want. We have just in volume 7 add little moments between the two, because yes, we need a little moment between the two. If they have fun, they laugh. Young and Blake go to a club together. Young says a joke that's not really funny, but Blake is giggling like it's the best fucking joke in the universe. It's cute moments like that. And I think in volume 8, Rousseautis understood that they couldn't go from volume 6 to volume 7 with Bumblebee as a couple. And I think it's a very good idea. I also think that in volume 7, Blake and Young needed to take a step back from the other, because you have a lot of stuff going on.
That's true.
Blake and Young doesn't need to be the focus at this moment. It's kind of Weiss' moment to shine, will be true. And I think we're going to have in volume 8 more couple moments. We are going to have, notably, I think in volume 7, you have a moment that is very telling in the airship when Young is looking at Wen and Nora, and Nora is taking Wen's hand, and you see the look on Young's face, who doesn't really know, I think. And I think we're going to have a lot of talk in volume 8 about these two, and a lot of moments where Young is going to realize she loves Blake. And yeah, I think they're going to work on it.
Yeah, I definitely think they're gonna work on it. I don't know. Like James just said, that Yang did something similar in Volume 5, like, oh, I need her here for
They
me.
both did. Well, Ruby also told Sun something like, "Well, I want them to hate me," and Sun said something like, "Well, Yang would do the same if she were in my place right now." Like, they're Sun and Weiss are both like big Bumblebee shippers.
Yeah,
This is canon.
they
You know
really
this.
do. They really do support the girls. They really do it for the girls.
I mean,
Best
he
wingman.
wears Bumblebee shoes,
True.
so you know.
Why do I just have like the mental image of like Weiss just holding like a couple of like chibi figurines of Blake and Yang just going kiss, kiss, kiss?
Yes. Oh my god.
I don't know. So
The thing
Overall-
with Catradora though is that that was their last season, so they had to they had to push it all in one go as fast as they could because they only had a certain amount of episodes. Bumblebee is still happening. I mean, we have confirmed feelings and all that stuff, so like I'd say it's pretty canon, but they're not in a relationship romantically just yet, but their feelings are confirmed. But we're gonna have a lot more seasons with them still, and even after maybe Salem's dead, we're gonna have more seasons with them after that too. So I think they're gonna have a lot of time to do it.
they have a
And
lot of
like,
time to do it, but I feel like a lot of my frustration with like them not doing it is the fact that, like, I don't know. I don't think this is how most Bumblebee people feel. I just feel like this is my perception looking in. But I feel like for me on the outside looking in, it feels like we're having, a thing of like, wow, Bumblebee, look at Rooster Teeth, they're doing Bumblebee, and it's this great LGBT ship. And me, who's like, I haven't seen a lot of LGBT shipping in media in terms of animation, but in terms of other things that are like live action and stuff like that, I've seen plenty of LGBT relationships. So with my brain and with what I've experienced and I've seen, comparing that to Bumblebee, something that like really hasn't even really happened yet, I feel weird praising, like having like this celebratory, hey, look at what they're doing, and I'm just like, but they haven't done it yet. And when Catradora finished, there was this kind of surge in the community of like, wow, this is what it's like to actually get the representation that we want. And you're right, Bumblebee is we have a lot more seasons with Bumblebee, and for all we know, we're gonna get a kiss next season. Who knows? But for me, it just feels weird when people are like wow, look at this, and I'm like, okay, but like I'm not impressed. Like you can do more. Like
I get
I've
that.
seen people in full on relationships, and they haven't even like they haven't even like really done anything with it yet.
For me, you can compare the way Catradora is written to the way Bumblebee is written, but you can't compare Catradora and Bumblebee if that makes sense. Because Catradora is what was driving the plot for She-Ra. Their relationship literally saved the universe, while the relationship for Bumblebee isn't as important for Ruby, you know? So basically, you can compare the way, like, oh, look, Catradora was a little bit more obvious. It would be nice for Bumblebee to be a little bit more obvious too. That's valid. But the moment you say, "Oh, why isn't Bumblebee like Catradora?" I don't feel like that's okay anymore because, like, literally, the plot of She-Ra was more or less revolving around the relationship of Adora and Catra, while Bumblebee isn't that crucial to Ruby, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce off of what Ali just said and kind of going even further by effectively going back to the way the shows are structured initially, is that because Ruby is like so tightly written and like they don't have a lot of wiggle room for how many episodes they can have or how long those episodes can be, with the exception of the season finales, of course. It almost feels like that they have to sort of like pick and choose what they want to prioritize, which is, do we want to prioritize what we sell ourselves as, which is, high schoolers learning to fight monsters, or do we want to prioritize something that sort of just happenstance became popular the more we just ran our show past them?
I mean, I don't think that's what. I think I have a different view on what Ruby's about because I really think RWBY's way more about the four girls growing up, and it's a coming of age story because not every episode has Grim in it, but every episode has Team RWBY in it.
That's
And
fair. That's true.
and I do think I agree with Allie, but I do think that their relationship is very important because I think the show is about the four girls growing and their relationships, whoever it would be with, are going to be very important to the plot. But she's right in the fact that as of right now, Bumblebee is like Blake and Yang themselves are just taking a step back from the Atlas arc while Ruby and Weiss are growing. And in the background, they're growing too. Because I would say by the end of the Atlas arc, we'd probably get a kiss or confirmed feelings, them telling each other kind of thing.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I definitely feel like it is about the four main girls, and I definitely feel like it makes sense that Blake and Yang took a step back in Volume 7 because they were big plots of Volume 5 and 6. But not my kind of thing with that is, since it is about the four main girls, I part of me does have a little bit of an issue with Blake and Yang, not as a romantic pair, but just Blake and Yang as characters taking a step back in volume 7 because it's called RWBY, not sometimes RW and sometimes BY. It's called RWBY. So I feel like they should all they Ruby Weiss, Blake, and Yang should always be not so much center stage, but they should always have plot relevance. And I feel like your two main characters, like your two out of your four main characters, are having some sort of relationship thing. I feel like maybe not the main priority of the show, but I feel like it should be up there. I feel like it should be up there. Like, I don't necessarily mind that they took a step back, but part of me does mind a little bit because it's like, well, the show is called RWBY, and they're a part of the group. So a lot of people complain about, and I feel like this is a valid complaint. A lot of people complain about, it kind of feels like sometimes it's just two little side ships rather than like a team thing. And I can understand sometimes splitting up, but like I think that sometimes I just feel like they should be more together because they're always splitting up into like Ruby and Weiss over here and Blake and Yang over there, and it's like, okay, but like, could y'all have done this together, like with the mech fight? Like, I like the mech fight, but personally, I would have enjoyed it better. Even though the vendetta was between Blake and Yang and Adam, I would have enjoyed it a little bit better if like maybe Ruby and Weiss were there and maybe they could like face him as a team. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think that's something that they've always had a criticism on is character interaction, and I think that they're definitely working on that since like Ruby and Blake are talking a lot more, and at the end of volume 6, she hugged Blake and was like,
I
yeah,
cried. I was like, oh
see
my
you.
god, they get interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely what they're doing since we see that Nora and Yang have both swapped spots in the teams, and it's gonna be pretty interesting because it's gonna be really interesting because Yang and Blake aren't gonna be there for Yang to say a stupid joke and for Blake to be like, oh my god, fuck me.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
So Blake can be like, "Hey Weiss, I'm bored now. What's up with you?" Or "Hey Ruby, what's up, dude?"
Yeah.
And I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's
Also,
important. I
overall,
think it's important to have that interaction.
yeah, overall, I think it would be great if we saw, assuming that Crow gets out of prison and he's okay.
Oh god,
If
poor
we saw
Crow.
basically, if you saw Ruby and Crow being a little bit protective of Yang, basically just going to talk with Blake, and we have this moment between
No.
Crow and Ruby.
Yes.
That would be so great.
I don't know. I
amazing.
feel like if I was Blake, I'd be very offended if after all these years of knowing each other and going on adventures,
that they're
your
fun.
sister and your
No.
uncle roll up on me talking about what do you want to do with my sister? What do you want to do with my niece?
No. That's not necessarily what I meant. I'm basically like, um how to explain it? Basically, like Crow being like, hey, she had a rough past. She had to raise Ruby and just take care of each other, take care of each other's feelings. Have each other's back. It's more like positive stuff to say. Basically, them
Yeah, that's cute. I
encouraging
like
each other,
that.
not them judging play, because I doubt they would do that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god. I was like, I'd be very offended if I was Blake and like Ruby and Crow. Ruby especially, because Ruby is, even though they don't interact, Ruby and Blake have known each other for years at this point and have risked their lives for each other. So it would be very weird if Ruby started like questioning Blake's intentions.
And imagine you have that old guy that drawing almost every time going on you going, be careful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
feel
think
like
everything is in volume 8 right now. Like, basically, let's see what volume 8 is gonna do with them.
yeah. Yeah, I think we've really gone deep with the whole Bumblebee conversation and
Yeah.
representation and stuff. I kind of want to, like, while we're on the subject of representation, we talked a little bit about Crow and Clover, but I do want to get into a little bit of Crow and Clover. And how do y'all feel about that relationship now that he's gone?
Ooh, I have a lot of things. Okay, this one requires a little bit of dissecting because
All right.
I'm one of those like crazy people that buys into the weird fan theory that Crow is actually secretly Ruby's real dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like conflicting feelings. Like number one, I like hearing the initial thoughts about like how fair game could have helped the dynamic of Crow and sort of helped him develop. That's the things that I live for. But ooh, it more so forces me to accept the possibility that my weird theory might end up just falling through the cracks of the floor. I don't know.
Hmm.
How do you feel about Ellie? What are your thoughts on fair game?
Well, honestly, I honestly shipped it. I liked it a lot, but at the same time, I didn't think that I was in the right place. Like, I am straight, or at least I think I am. I'm just debating. Maybe I'm aromantic, whatever. But overall, I don't think that it's my place to say if something is queer baiting or not. So basically, when all of those people came and were like, "Oh, we feel baited about Lucky Charm or fairy games, whatever," uh, I was just standing there on the side, not knowing what to do, because on one side, I could see people who were like, "Oh, they were just friends." Okay, I could see that because it was subtext. But on the other side, I could see people who were feeling like they were baited because it was subtext. It was there. There was something there. Even if that was unintentional, there was, in my opinion, there was something between them, and I myself liked them.
That's fair.
I don't think we should attack Ruby for it, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because a lot of people I know that went and tagged the Miles and everyone and started to attack them, and I don't think that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, who on the panel is LGBT?
Me.
Me too. Cool, great. James, I wanted to get your opinion. Like, do you think it was queer baiting? Like, what did you think about the whole situation?
I'm not a gay man. Um, I was before I came out as trans in lesbian relationships, and that's kind of my cup of tea still, mostly because I identify with them still. But I love fair game. I ship fair game a lot. Um, I definitely could see how it could be queer baiting, but at the same time, like Ali said, I also can see that I think Clover was meant to die from when we first learned that he had a luck charm as
Mm-hmm.
a semblance. So, like, it hurt a lot when he died, but at the same time, I kind of was expecting it,
Yeah.
and I don't think they expected people to latch on and think that they were a ship so soon. Um, but I mean, I still think to this day that Crow like is in love with or liked or there was something there he had a crush on Clover. and that potentially, I know that there's a fan theory that the staff of creation could bring him back, and I could see that Crow getting the staff and then debating on whether he should bring back Clover, or that being too selfish of him, or what Clover would want to happen and stuff like that.
Yeah, for me, I guess since I'm the only like MLM person since I'm bi, but I don't know. I liked it. I liked the ship. I definitely at the moment he like winked and was like, "Lucky you." I was like, "Okay, they're gay," but I definitely liked the ship. I wasn't. A lot of people were violently emotionally hurt by it. Me personally, I wasn't, but I completely understand anyone who was really hurt by the situation because you felt like, oh, I'm going to get this. I'm going to be seen, and then I'm not going to be seen. Now I do feel like Ruby and Miles and Carrie have a little bit of a queer baiting issue, but I don't think they intentionally do anything to hurt anyone. I don't think the situation was meant to hurt anybody. I don't think that they should be dragged and attacked. Now I do think it is okay for someone to say, "Hi, my name is such and such, and I was hurt by the situation." I think that's fair, but I don't think people should attack anyone. Now, I personally, while I like Lucky Charms, I prefer Crow and Ironwood. Ever since I started the show, I kind of had this headcanon that Ironwood and Crow and Winter are all in a love triangle. So,
Oh
that's
my goodness.
like, cause I don't know, cause I created this whole backstory that like, Ironwood being a military man really wasn't into it, but then like Crow, being kind of rebellious and kind of like a bad boy, got through his metal exterior, and then stuff happened, they broke up, and then Crow got with Winter a little bit, but because Winter's also like really uptight, and Crow's the kind of guy that like would kind of wiggle through that exterior. And then once again, because Elysians are trash, they broke up, and then now Ironwood and Winter are together, and that's why they have beef. That's why Winter does not like Ironwood. I mean, that's why Winter doesn't like Crow, and that's why Ironwood in Volume 3 did not like Crow, because, Crow broke his heart and, got with his woman. So that's just my opinion. That's just my headcanon.
I can't wait to see what happens between Ironwood and Crow, because it does seem that Ironwood very much does care about Crow, because like he does hug him and he's like, "I'm so happy you're here," and I was like, "Oh my god, what's going on here?" And,
Yeah.
Crow's out for revenge.
and
So
now
it's basically
I think
James
Crow
will
wants
pay the
to kill him.
price.
It reminds me a lot when I saw Tom, Unicorn of War's video, and he brought up the animated movie Mulan as a good example of like how the theory of like Shen being like homosexual sort of came about.
Yeah.
And I love the way he said it. Like, y'all, you have to look at this. Normal straight men do not look at fellow army men like this. And
They don't.
This is not like I'm not one to say this because I'm one of those non-binary people, but like that's not how straight people act.
Yeah, like they don't. Like, I mean, this isn't a Mulan podcast, but I'll just get into it for a second. Shane was like disgusted. Shane was like disgusted a little bit when he found out like she's a woman, and he was like so hurt because he felt so betrayed because the person who he thought he was falling in love with wasn't that person. But then like once Mulan saves China, he realizes like, oh wow, this is the same person I fell for, and it was cute and everything. But in terms of Ironwood, yeah. In terms of Ironwood and Crow and Clover, as I don't know, there was a big MLM like debate, like, oh, this is MLM and this is that, and RWBY needs more MLM ships. I personally, don't care. I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not upset that we don't have a lot of MLM ships. I mean, I would love if we did, but like, I feel like a win for one of us is a win for all of us. If Bumblebee is like we get a Bumblebee kiss, I feel like that is. I think everyone in the LGBT community should be happy for that. I think a win for one of us is a win for all of us, and I think I don't remember who said it, but a couple of maybe it was 30 minutes ago. Somebody said that they do more woman ships because it's easier to digest. I guess like people take more interest in that, but I don't think it's because people accept women more in that aspect. I feel like it's because actually it's kind of sad. People don't really validate lesbian relationships a lot. They think like, oh, it's women, like, they can't do what XYZ, so it's not a real relationship. Or a lot of like straight men, they're like, oh, I wouldn't care if my girlfriend slept with another girl because it's not cheating because there's no dick involved and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? I feel like it's that because I think Eruption Fang made a video a year ago and it got him in a lot of trouble because I think he made a weird phrase or whatever about woman chips. But what he was trying to say in that video was people look at woman, woman ex woman chips in a different way because especially our culture is very focused on the male gaze. And, if men think something is, spicy or whatever, they're gonna allow it. They're gonna allow it. So I feel like a lot of it is like the invalidation of lesbian relationships, while also it's they like it because it's the male gaze, it's a straight male gaze, and they think it's spicy, so they'll allow it. Because no one really cared about in terms of men being mad. A lot of men weren't really mad about Bumblebee because it's like, okay, it's women. But as soon as that little Clover thing happened, like, I think I remember. I'm not super religious, but I go to church and I have a little RWBY little fan club at church. And when I go, I got there was this guy. There were these guys getting into a debate. There was like, oh, Ruby's gay now, and they're making a gay character, and blah blah blah. Blah. And like, they were really mad. Like, they were pissed. And I was like, why are you so mad? And I didn't say this to them, but like they were mad because like they was men, and they can't they can't beat off to that. Like that's not what gets them into it. So I feel I feel like that's a big reason why people do women x women ships in media because they're kind of safer. Please correct me if I'm being problematic, but I feel like that's it, in society. It's seen as safer, but it's not safer because people think that women are just better. But I feel like they're safer because a lot of people invalidate those relationships and they don't see that as a threat. They don't see that as a threat. You know what I mean?
I mean, let's be honest. Like, who here has not seen two women making out with one another and hasn't said in the back of your mind, "Damn, that shit's hot."
I mean, yeah, like who, I don't know, like not to make anyone uncomfortable, but I just feel like that's a lot of where it comes from. This whole
I get that, yeah, but I don't think the fans of Bumblebee are straight men who want to jerk off. A lot of Bumblebee fans are women.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that like that's I wasn't trying to say that Bumblebee fans are men that are trying to beat up to women. I'm saying a lot of men didn't have the visceral I'm angry, I'm gonna tear the show apart reaction to Bumblebee because it was two women.
I can't even speak. That's because of toxic masculinity in society, in our society. Girls who like to be tomboys are way more accepting than boys who want to wear skirts.
Yeah.
And that's because men are put on this.
I'm a tomboy and I agree. Yeah, I'm a tomboy and I agree.
Yeah.
Put on this thing. Men get made fun of way more for being trans or wanting to wear dresses because society puts men in this box. Well, women, it's I don't know why the reason is, but it's a little bit more accepting that they don't wear dresses and don't wear this and don't wear that. There's still toxic stuff with gay women. It's just in society, it's seen as better, and in society as well, it's seen as a lot of women are like, yeah, I experiment, yeah, I do this, but men think that, oh, if I ever try this, I'm fucking gay. I can't do that. Ew.
Yeah.
Like,
I get that all the time. I get that all the time. Like, if a girl is like, oh, like, she's hot, like, maybe I might experiment. It's like, people don't really bat an eye. They're like, ooh, or whatever. But if a guy is like, maybe I'll experiment, it's like, oof, no, you're gay. And it's like they're burned at the stake. I don't know. And I just, I feel like a lot of that is, like I was saying earlier, the invalidation of lesbian relationships. They don't see lesbian relationships as valid or a threat to their masculinity or a
Yeah,
threat to
I
society.
think they might see it more as in a general sense, not as like a Bumblebee sense. Like generally, gay lesbian couples to them are more like a fantasy of, well, imagine if I was in the middle of that. I've
Yeah.
definitely had people say that.
Yeah, they're being sexualized.
Yeah. And to be clear, I was not trying to imply that like that's what the Bumblebee
Yeah.
fandom is. I
I
just
get
I just
you.
feel like that's why Bumblebee isn't getting backlash in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too. Crow, everyone loves Crow. Crow's
Yeah.
been everyone loves him since forever, and I know a fair few people who've made like OCs just to like fuck Crow, and then now they're now because Crow isn't explicitly straight and he could have a crush on a man. Now they feel very invalidated with their entire identity in the RWBY community, and I had to say, shut the fuck up.
Oh,
Stop.
Yeah.
it's the same as that dude who was like, "Oh, I'm not okay with Yang being a lesbian because that means that I
Oh
can't
my
date
God.
her."
What? That's so strange.
Yes,
She can be a lesbian. She has big boobs.
Oh,
yes.
I
Oh my
mean,
god, that was really that
I
actually
don't
like
understand those people
made
because
me
it's like
angry.
even
You're
if
right,
Yang,
dude.
because even if Yang is like, I'm marrying Blake, no man ever look at me ever again. Like, I mean, in terms of like what's canon and what's not, like you can argue about that all the time, but you can just make a fan fiction,
I
write your own
know.
story, do whatever you have to do in the privacy of your own home. No one's stopping you. No one's stopping you.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand this whole Bumblebee or LGBT ships invalidate me because they don't. You know what I mean? Like they don't. I don't know. I feel like LGBT people from the moment that from the moment that we're born, we are able to identify with straight people all the time. We do it all the time. We do it in movies, we do it in TV shows. We're always able to muster up a way to see ourselves in media. You know what I mean? I just gushed about Mulan, Shane and Mulan. That's a straight ship. I love Shane and Mulan. I love them. I'm able to put myself into that emotionally. But for some reason, it's weird because straight people are like, "Well, if it's gay, I can't imagine myself. I can't see myself in it." And I think that's weird because number one, we do it all the time, and number two, even if you can't see yourself in that, I'm okay with that because you see yourself more often than we see ourselves. I feel like
Yes.
you can sacrifice not having Crow be straight. I feel like that's something that you can handle. That's fine. I'm okay with you not being validated in that area.
That
Exactly.
seems to be like a weird subsect too. It's like you get the shippers that like are sort of like, I want these two to be together, but then you sort of get like the weird shippers that are like, oh, like I want these two to get together because I personally am in love with this fictional character.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, honey, just write a fan fiction. Like again, pick up a pen, open up a Word document. Like you use your imagination. You know
It's
what I
like a lot of
mean?
Jean ships because in the beginning of the series, Jean was like the uh, the main like male protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
and people then made a bunch of harems with him just because of
Oh,
that.
The
those
RNG
fanfics
test.
around John.
Can we talk about Jean? Can we get into like the Jean ships now? Because I
Oh
think
my
Jean is
goodness.
a whole conversation. So let's start it off with like how do we all like Jean? Like how do we feel about Jean?
I like
He's
Okay,
him,
really
honestly.
annoying.
okay.
I like him personally.
I have to preface this by saying, like, if we're talking like volumes 1 through 3, Jean, no, just
Yeah.
dude's absolutely annoying,
Oof.
bottom tier character, worst character, NA. But if we're talking about
Oof.
recent seasons where like we get those small snippets of like him actually being a leader, sort of coping and just moving on, I would say he slips into the somewhat likable, if not tolerable, camp.
He's way more
Yeah.
tolerable.
Post Volume 4, I feel like that's where I started to like him.
Yeah, same.
It
It's
doesn't
kind of
help that he
reversed
was
for
really
me.
creepy towards Weiss.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, for me, I've always liked Jean because I thought Jean. I feel like Jean was kind of. People always say that. People always make this complaint that I don't think it's valid. But people are like, "Oh, Jean is just a mild self-insert." Whatever. I think that Jean is like a viewer self-insert. I feel like when I was watching the show from Volume 1, I was like, wow, this is me coming into this world literally not knowing anything. I don't know how to fight. I don't know what a semblance is. What's aura? You know what I mean? And I feel like we were able to get lessons and we were able to get things explained to us through Jean. And I feel like that was his primary purpose in the beginning. And
Yeah, exactly.
and I feel like throughout the evolution of the show, he's kind of grown as we've grown with the show. You know, now he has his aura, now he has a semblance, now he has a hot haircut, now he has a better outfit. You know what I mean? Now he's getting along with everyone. And I feel like the complaints that Jean was like annoying in Volume 1, I can see that. I can agree with that. That's valid. But I feel like Jean had a very clear purpose from the beginning. And I feel like him trying to go out and trying to flirt. I like that because nobody else in RWBY does that. Like I was saying, like I talk to Allie about this all the time. Why don't people just date? Why don't people just go up and just date and say, oh, you know, so and so's hot, like Velvet's cute, like let me ask her to the prom. You know, nobody does that. The only person who does that, people who do that are like Jean and Neptune. And they do it in like weird, creepy ways, and that's why people are like, "Oh, you're creepy." Yeah, well, yeah, because you have lame lines and you say it in a weird, creepy way.
My big
I
problem
don't
with
like
John,
Neptune.
my big problem with John in Volume 1 is he takes screen time that other character doesn't have. You have no arc for Young in Volume 1, but you have what?
That's
3 or 4
true.
episodes for John, and you're like, I don't like you, dude. I like Young. I want to see
That's
what
fair.
happens."
Yang got rushed after in Volume 1. She really had nothing. All she really did in Volume 1 was like she was hot and like she was hot.
The
Like
comedy
everything
relief,
else, she didn't really do nothing
Yeah.
in Volume 1. Now, that's a valid critique of Jean. I do agree that he does eat up a lot of time that we need to be devoting to Team RWBY. Like, you know, even in fucking Volume 7, like, I love the Aesop fight. Aesop fight was super hot. I really enjoyed it. I think that was my favorite fight of the volume. But Team RWBY should not have been fighting the Aesops, in my opinion. That should have been Team Junior. Team RWBY should have been fighting actual Team Witch members like Cinder and Tyrion and, you know, Neo and them. They should not have been fighting the Aesops. I feel like that should have been like a secondary Team Junior or Team Juniper adventure while Team RWBY was in the main plot. So once again, you know, we were like, okay, Neo, Yang is going to get a rematch with Neo. Yang didn't even see Neo. Neo didn't even care that Yang was there. It was Jean and his team kind of in the spotlight fighting Neo. Like, what?
Can you imagine
wanted
like
to-
an actual fight between like Ranger with the added help of Oscar of all people against the Aesops?
I don't
And
think
then-
they would have won.
I think they would have won because John's semblance is OP. Like he would have amped them up.
Yeah, like just like just Ozma just kicks in, just like okay, y'all are done.
I don't think
You're finished.
they do it, because in Volume 7, Team Juniper is kind of they're not in the right they're not in the right line. You have Nora and Ren, they don't agree with each other. You have John, that's kind of the middle. He doesn't know what to do, and you have Oscar, that's he doesn't have his semblance, he doesn't have nothing. I think something that can be interesting in Volume 8 is to see Team Juniper working again together like Team RWBY.
I definitely feel like maybe you're right. Maybe they would have lost the Aesops, but like on the bright side, at least we wouldn't have like everyone every day on Twitter talking about how they're so sad that the Aesops lost because the Aesops are so perfect and they're just the best fighters in the world and oh my god.
Understand the story.
Like, oh my god. I feel like every year at the end of the volume, like there's just something that the fandom just goes on and on about. I'm just like, would you please shut up?
Adam should have won that fight. He easily could have done that, even though it was shown that when he did fight Blake and Yang were already fighting other things, and he was full aura, and his semblance was full on blast. So
Yeah, not to mention in
easily
volume
beat him,
6,
yeah.
Adam, like, he lost his fucking mind, and when he used to fight them in the past, he was like level headed, and he had, for the most part, he was level headed, and he had his head on straight. In volume 6, Adam was like, he was Coco for Cocoa Pops, like, he was insane.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I just feel like, I don't know, especially with this whole volume 7 thing and the whole, oh, Aesop and blah, 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 you know, they're the best huntsman in the world, and, you know, like, that's really, I don't know. I just feel like, as I was saying
And then
earlier,
they train them.
yeah, you know, they train to get better. I don't know. I just feel like Team RWBY, in hindsight, I enjoyed the fight, but in hindsight, I feel like Team RWBY should have been involved with the main bad guys, the main villain. Because wasn't Cinder there to like take the relic and kill Ruby? She didn't even look at Ruby. She didn't even go after Ruby. She went after the maiden again.
Oh boy, but that's
She got her
biggest problem
shit
for
rocked.
5.
You know, again. So I don't know. But like, what were we talking about? Were we talking about Jean?
Yeah.
Yes, we were talking about.
Oh.
Talk about John's shit.
I love how like we hate Jean so much, so like we can't even like talk about him. Like we talk about other things just to not talk about Jean.
I mean, my favorite ship with them would probably just be Ruby, but I don't ship
Same.
it that much.
I'm a White Knight shipper.
Yeah, honestly, I really like. I actually really ship John and Ruby, but it's just for fun, nothing more, because I can't see it happening. Like if there is a John ship that will happen, that's probably with Weiss. Because come on, okay, I hated White Knight in volume 1 to 3. Like I disliked their relationship a lot. Like KFC knows I hated them a lot. But after volume 5, you know, where John discovered his semblance and then he grew, I might be able to get behind it, you know, because they both grew as characters. John isn't that character who he was in volume 1 to volume 3. So I might actually get behind White Knight happening, you know.
I love White
It's still
Knight, you know?
personal, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm with Ali on this one. If we're talking White Knight Volume 1 through 3, no chance. Not a snowball's chance in hell,
Yep.
unintended.
But like,
But,
okay, but like everyone's like, okay, Jean was bad in volume 1. I personally, I can see Jean being annoying, but I had way more of a beef with Weiss in volume 1. If I had to watch Jean versus Weiss in volume 1, I would pick Jean because Weiss was bad. Like I don't know. Like, sorry, Weiss stands. I'm sorry, Weiss stands. Volume 1,
No, I
I did
didn't
not
too.
like her at all. I didn't know why she was a main character. I didn't know why she was there. She seemed more like a bully than like a person. Like I did not like Weiss.
And that's why we love her.
Yeah, because she changed and she's grown, and so has Jean. And I feel like in volume 5 when they were all at the table, a lot of people hate that scene when they were at the table, but I loved it. Like both Jean and Weiss were like, I'm so embarrassed by volume 1, me. I'm so embarrassed with who that person was. So I just feel like they really grew together. And I especially love that Jean was a big enough person in volumes 1 through 3, where Neptune literally, I mean, this is gross, and you know, Neptune didn't own Weiss or whatever. Like, you can't own someone. But Neptune was basically like, here, you can have Weiss. And he was like, no, do you like Weiss? And he was like, yeah. And since John knew that Weiss liked Neptune, he was like, okay, I want Weiss to be happy over me getting Weiss or whatever. So, I don't know. I think John doesn't get enough credit for being such a good boy.
Yeah, that one moment in, I think, season 2, that one was, I think, like the first like small moment where I had a change in attitude for Jean. And then it kind of slipped back there for like a little bit for volume 3. But then when season 4 came around, I was like, you know what, Jean, you changed. You had a good growth, and now I like you.
But like volume 3 though, like he was so supportive with Pyrrha, and she was just able to like open up to him so naturally, and like, you know, and even in volume 1 where like he was like, no, I'm not gonna throw this sap at Pyrrha. Like that is where I draw the line. Pyrrha, she is my friend, and I'm not gonna hurt Pyrrha. So I feel like
Arco's
Jean's
fine.
always had integrity.
He has a good heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's always had integrity. In Volume 4, I didn't like Jean in Volume 4. I didn't like a lot of people in Volume 4, even though Volume 4 is one of my favorite volumes, because everyone was just so, I mean, understandably so, but everyone was just so, like, sad and, like, unentertaining. I don't
That's
know.
fair.
And I feel like by volume 6, I love Pyrrha. I think they should always remember her. But like, part of me is like, did we really need that statue scene? Like,
Come on, that's just kicking you while you're down.
why did we need that? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I mean,
And then
I
like
feel
her
like
sister
when
being there.
yeah, I feel like when it's like, oh, see, John, Ren, and Nora have this moment in front of the statue of Pyrrha. It's basically them finally letting her go, and I think that was the last moment we will see something Pyrrha related. Like I feel like that's the moment everyone finally managed to move on, you know. And they
yeah.
it was
But I feel
this
like
episode that
what was
moved on.
really, I'm sorry, you were talking, Ali. My bad.
No, it's great. That's all I want to say. Like
No,
that
but
was the thing
like,
that they basically moved on.
yeah, but like this goes back to character interaction and like why some ships feel more valid because people don't fucking talk to each other. Pyrrha, yes, Pyrrha was a member of Team Juniper and she was closest with John and Nora, but like all 8 kids are supposed to be friends. So like again, I don't understand why this was a junior moment when, Ruby saw her fucking die. Weiss looked up to Pyrrha and wanted to be best friends with her when she got to Beacon. Blake and Yang may not have cared that much, but, like, I'm sure they liked Pyrrha. Like, I'm sure they were friends. Pyrrha kind of had Blake's back in Volume 2 when Weiss was telling all of her tea to everyone. So I just feel like that should have been like, okay, we're all here to honor Pyrrha. We're all here to like, grieve over our friend. Maybe have a little funeral moment.
Say, something somewhat related to what you said right now is something that is one of the things that I feel like is bad for Volume 3, or even for Volume 4, is the fact that we never saw Ren and Nora's reactions to Pyrrha's death. Like, we never saw that. We saw all, even John's, like, come on, we saw only how Ruby reacted to Pyrrha dying, and then that's it. We didn't see how the moment they got the news, did they break down? There was a lot of crying, maybe, I don't know, we never saw that
We
reaction.
never saw it.
It's yeah, and I feel like that's a lost opportunity because it could have been great to see how they react. Like imagine Crow, because Crow was the one who found Ruby right there unconscious. Crow coming back to them and being like, they were like, oh, where's Pyrrha? Oh, that's Ruby, she's okay, where's Pyrrha? And Crow basically having to tell them, oh, she's dead. How did they react? I wanted to see that scene, and it's not there, and it's sad, honestly, because it could have been great.
It really could have. And it was weird because we saw more of Team Coffee's reaction in like the After the Fall book than we ever saw of like Weiss, Blake, Yang, Jean, or anyone. So that was definitely a missed opportunity. But like while we're talking about Jean and his ships, like who is there like a favorite ship? I mean, is it obviously Arcos? That's the best Jean ship, or is it Lancaster?
Yeah.
No, Arcos, definitely. Definitely Arcos is the most
absolutely.
popular.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's Arcos, but since like that can't happen, I'm definitely more of a White Knight shipper because I don't know, they've just both come so far, and I like the idea of Weiss. I like ships where like the rich snobby person is kind of taken off of their high horse and they're able to fall in love with someone who they would normally see as beneath them. You know what I mean? Because like yes, John was really creepy and obsessive in Volume 1, but also like Weiss kind of had a little bit of a superiority complex where she was like, no, I'm not gonna date you because you're literally beneath me. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
why
that
I
was the kind of
also like-
attitude that she kind of had with Jean.
Yeah.
That actually does bring up an interesting thing is like, does a ship become invalidated when one of the two participants just flat out dies?
I mean, in terms of it being like valid, no. But in terms of it happening, I mean, I don't mean I'm not a necrophilia fan. I'm not really into that, but
Oh, nah.
because like it can't really happen, and it really can't happen because like her body doesn't exist anymore. It was incinerated.
It was Thanos.
Yeah, it was Thanos snapped. It was like oof, you know. So unless they bring her back to life, which please do not, please don't
Yeah,
do that to me because it would invalidate. Because that would mean I was crying for Pyrrha for like 4 years over nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I mean,
like the only reason that I forgave Penny coming back is because I think that they're gonna might do nuts and bolts. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a
That'd be
soft
nice.
spot for nuts and bolts.
I like nuts and
Yeah,
bolts. I
it's
think it's
overrated.
beautiful. I feel like
It's
Ruby can see past all the metal and all of the wires, and like Penny is a real girl to her. Penny is a person. Penny has a heart and a soul. You know what I mean? So I just think that's so beautiful. Nuts and bolts. Like if we don't get Rose Garden, I can do nuts and bolts.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like the small awkward silence.
Yeah, I was like, who's gonna talk? Like, oof. But speaking of Rose Garden, how do we feel about that? How do we feel about Rose
I
Garden?
like it.
I
Oh, I
like
love
it.
it.
I like it so far, as in, just, Ozma just sort of just like checks out and just does not become a part of the
Same.
equation.
I get that. I get people's concern with Ozma being there. But here's my thing with that. I really like, for example, I really like the moment in Volume 5 when Ruby is talking about why she keeps moving forward and why she's hopeful. She talks about the death of her friends. And then when she leaves, Oscar just has this. I blush at this moment because Oscar's just like, it wasn't Oscar. Oscar was looking at her like he liked her, and then Ozpin kind of creeped in as like the older dad kind of giving his son advice where like she's really amazing, isn't she? And he was like, yeah, she must have been like the greatest huntress ever, and blah 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 blah. And he was like kind of telling him why Ruby is such a good person. And it was really cute. Some people look at that as like, wow, this old creepy old man is trying to like creep in on this little girl. I don't see it as that. I see Ozma, number one, because I see them as two different characters, but number two is because like I see Ozpin more as a mentor for everyone, and I really think it's cute when like older people are like cool and they actually give like younger people advice about relationships.
Oh yeah, same. Honestly, I guess another thing that people have a problem is the age gap, and that in a way that's hypocritical because no one said anything about John and Ruby when John was 19 at some point and Ruby was 17. People still ship them. Same with White Rose. Like I cannot. I People have this idea that if two people get in a relationship, they immediately have to have something sexual, but a relationship can be just purely without anything sexual until both are ready, until both are adults.
Yeah, I feel like it all depends on your own personal moral compass. Now, for me, I I don't know, because I have been in a situation where like I'm 17 and I'm in a relationship with someone who's like maybe 2 years older, at the most 3 years older. But like for me, like when if I'm 17, I'm not gonna date someone that's like 4 to 5 years older than me. But like for example, now that I'm 19, now that I am and now that I am of that legal age, I might consider dating someone that's a little older than me, like maybe five years or so. But I feel
I
like
think
with Ruby and Oscar, it's only a 2 year age gap. And with Ruby, if you were to ship her with literally anyone else in the cast, it's the same age gap. Like it's the same age gap. If Ruby was with Weiss or with Jean or with Blake, or with any other of the other Huntsman aged kids, there's gonna be that age gap there anyway. And like Ali just said, just because they date doesn't mean they have to do the
I
nasty.
mean,
You know
at
what I
this
mean?
point,
Like
they're both underage.
yeah,
At
you
this
know what I
point, they're both
mean?
underage because Oscar is 15 and Ruby is 17. Like, at this point, it's problem if you sexualize them because they're underage, they're minors. Don't do that, please.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
it's it was even funnier because for those that don't know, I'm in one of the Frostbite discords, and we were joking about how there was a RWBY episode that dropped, I think either the day before or the day after like Halloween, which is canonically Ruby's birthday.
Yeah.
And we did the math, and we said, wait a minute. It was confirmed that Ruby is 17 during volume 7. It technically passed her birthday. So does that technically mean that Ruby like actually aged from 17 to 18 mid volume?
I mean, it could happen. I don't know.
We're thinking
Yeah,
about it
but-
in real life, though.
Exactly,
Not-
and it's really confusing. The timeline from RWBY is confusing a lot.
Also, another thing I want to put is, like, for example, everyone on this panel is an American, and even within America, everyone, there's like, I mean, I don't feel like it should be this way, but it is. In America, in different states and different places, have different weird age of consent laws, and, you know, whether you think
Yeah.
that's wrong or right or whatever, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like in the context of that world, we don't necessarily know. But I feel like a good rule of thumb is anyone under the age of 18 should not be, you know, sexualized in that type of manner. I think that's a good rule of thumb to just have across the board so there's no, you know, confusion or whatever. But I do think it is okay to talk about romance because I feel like romance and sex are like they can go hand in hand, but they're different. Like you can be in a romantic relationship and love someone and not, you know, have anything sexual with it. So, you know, there's that.
The other thing too, like I think this is what I tend to practice, but like most of my past relationships, like we did not have like any like year span that was like greater than like 3 years. Even the partner that I have right now, like she's actually 7 months older than me, and I never thought in my entire life I would date someone who was like actually older than me, but I like the more you kind of get used to it, the more you kind of see it as like not really a problem anymore.
Yeah, like most people aren't the same exact age or the same exact time span. Like, even people who I've gone on dates with or I've been out with that are 19, maybe they're 7 months older than me, maybe they're 6 months older than me, maybe they're 2 weeks older than me. Like at that point, when you start cutting it down to like months, I'm like, oh, is someone X amount of months? I feel like at that point you're splitting hairs, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like why? Like this isn't, you know, or like people who have the whole issue with Oscar and, you know, Osmond, you merging and becoming one, and, you know, people will say that once they merge and become one, they're gonna be the same person, and it's weird. I can see that, but I also, like, for example, the Twilight movies. I wasn't a fan of the Twilight movies, but I remember that no one really had a problem that Edward was like 400 years old. Nobody really had beef with, you know, that.
For me, I don't have a problem with, let's say, quote unquote, big age gaps as long as the two people are basically both adults able of consent. Going a little bit out of RWBY right now, I think you both know, all of us here know about the relationship between Arnold and Cal, right?
Oh yes, I'm aware.
Yeah,
Oof.
so people have a problem because there's a 10-year age gap, give or take. Cal is in her, just turned 20, I think.
Yeah, I think Kyle's 20 and Arnold's like 27,
was
28.
30. Yeah, Arnold was 30, and there are a lot of people who are like, oh, but it's problematic. And I'm like, here, no, they're both adults, able of consent, leave them alone. Like, it's okay, it's a healthy.
Yeah, I have a
don't
big
understand the people
problem
having
with that.
Yeah.
I have a big problem with people who like get into other people's business. And
Same,
it's
like,
one thing because, for example, a couple weeks ago, I was checked over a very problematic joke that I made about an underage character in Avatar, and I had to look within myself, and I was like, okay, that is problematic. I'm not going to do that again. You know, I tweeted it on something public. It made people uncomfortable, and I took a step back, and I was like, hi, that is not okay. Cool, great. But when it comes to people's real lives, like these are people's real lives. Are you telling me that you have the time? You have the time to be in someone else's like real life relationship. Like you can have your personal opinion on age gap relationships, but when it comes to real people, you don't. You shouldn't be able to just give your opinion on that because it's none of your business. Like these are two adults. Like you know what I mean? Like they don't. Like, there's none of our business. We shouldn't be talking about it.
If you will,
Ham?
It's incredibly funny. Like, imagine, if you will, getting so wound up about what two consenting adults do in the privacy of their own bedroom. I know, very shocking.
Yeah. Like I can't wrap my head around people who are like in their actual relationship. Like, what are you doing? Are you her mom?
As
Like,
long as
can
it's
you back
healthy.
off? Like, who are you? I just
Yeah,
think
as
it's
long as
weird.
it's
I don't know.
healthy.
People love to like attack Cal for just so many things, and I just feel like why? Like,
Unfortunately.
why attack a queen? Like, why go after the most like nice? Look, I think Cal is one of the nicest people in the fandom. I don't know too. I think
Same.
I've had so many positive actions with them, especially in terms of shipping. Like, Cal inspired this entire panel because her Ruby shipping videos are so iconic, and I remember when she used to like make them all the time, even if it was like the most crazy ship, even if it was like Adam x Glinda or whatever. Like, they were just so interesting because you could go from the different angles and how that would progress certain characters. I don't know. I just think Cal
Her
is a
fun is
pioneer
interesting.
in
She's
the
very
Ruby
funny,
shipping community.
and I love
Yeah.
Hunter. Hunter is the voice of reason to Cal.
Basically. I don't know. But like,
Uh,
yeah, I just again, anyone out there who's listening to this, if you have an issue, Aaron Cal, please keep it to yourself. Don't talk about it. It's not
no.
anyone's place. Please don't. Please don't. We don't need it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what's the final verdict on Rose Garden? Are we cool with it? Are we not cool with it?
I am cool with it, honestly.
I'm cool with it.
I love it. I think
I
it's
think I'm
great.
chill with it.
Say that again?
I don't like it.
Ooh. Okay, why don't you
I've
like
been
it?
quiet this whole time.
Oh, ooh, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Just
Like,
because I don't
no,
like
again,
Oscar.
That's
everyone
fair. Like,
everyone
honestly,
can
disliking the
spit
ship,
their
it's fine. Like,
view.
disliking the ship just because you don't like it, it's fine.
It's fine. You don't have to like the ship. I'm just,
I'm like that with White Rose, honestly. So that's okay. Like, people have different tastes, and that's fine. You know.
That's all right.
My thing, though, this is something I hold in the highest regard, is the distinction between a subjective argument and an objective argument. Whereas you can you can say that you can dislike something, but you have to back it up using objective things that you can find within the thing that you don't like. You can't just fall back on the notion of like, well, I just personally don't like it, and therefore it's bad. No, that's a very subjective and a very relativistic way of looking at it. Is that, like, because it's so relative and it deals with like personal tastes, then what you don't like, someone else might find enjoyable, which is why you have to fall back on the using properties that the object has within of itself to more or less prove why you don't like the thing that you don't like.
Honestly, overall, I just hate people who think that their opinion is a fact. And like,
yeah.
like,
Yes.
see, this is my opinion, that's a fact. No, I hate people who think like that. Like, no,
Like,
please stop
no.
that.
And
Yeah,
for you, James, like, again, like I think I told this to everyone before when I asked them to be on the panel. Whether we're right, whether we're wrong, like whatever, like who cares? As long as you're honest and you're giving your honest opinion, like honestly, if you want to, like, you can sit here for the next 20 minutes or so and talk about why you don't like Rose Garden. Like, that is fine. Like, you do not have to like Rose Garden.
I mean, my reasonings aren't like, I agree with you guys where it's like it's only a 2 year age gap, and the thing with Ozpin being in his mind, like, we don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm guessing Oscar's going to try to reject him is what I think is going to happen, and he fully rejects him and becomes his own person, which would be totally fine. I just don't think they have chemistry
That's
at all.
valid.
That's fine. That's valid.
That's valid.
I like the chemistry between Weiss, obviously, and John. I would rather have John be with Ruby than Oscar, and or none at all. Like, I think it's okay if Ruby doesn't get in the relationship at all.
Yeah, a lot of people have this theory that Ruby is asexual, and if that is true, that would be groundbreaking for like the ace community because they don't have a lot of
Yeah.
representation.
The main character
yeah.
is not into sexual activity, which would be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
In terms of Rose Garden, I actually have a really heartbreaking thing with. I like Rose Garden because of all the reasons I said, but I also like Rose Garden because I don't think it's possible, and I think it's doomed to fail. And I think that because I do think that Ozpin is going to take over Oscar's body, and basically what I think that means is Ruby's gonna fall in love, and that love is going to be taken away from her. And kind of everyone's heard Sacrifice, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like there was this line where like he's like whoever's singing it is like, even with the lives you stole, still no closer to your goal. Like Ozpin is literally taking the lives of people. Like he is literally
Yeah, that's why I like
snatching
it.
opportunities away. And I just feel like that would be such a heartbreaking story where like you finally find this person that you love and they're literally taken away from you and you can't control it. And it's especially insidious if Ozpin is somehow related to her losing her mother. So it's like, okay, you take my mother from me and you take my boyfriend, like fuck you. Like I don't know. I just feel like that's just such a heartbreaking story, and I low key live for heartbreaking stories sometimes.
Insert the sequel story where Ruby turns evil.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah. Like what you
and
said about sacrifice, there are the same lines in Divide. Like Divide is one of my favorite songs. There is the whole thing. It was you who ended their lives, made them to dig their own graves with your dark, sick, something, something, convinced them their work would be saved. You know,
yeah, like
what
and
is
it's
so
just
much
like
because Ozpin
Ozpin's
is awesome.
reincarnation really fucks up people's lives. Like it really does. Like
Yeah.
I think there was one life where like the guy had kids, and like Ozpin was like, okay, I'll let you be I'll let you be around your family, I guess. But like imagine like, okay, I have a dad, and like I don't have a dad now because like now my dad has been taken over by this random man. Like,
Hmm.
ugh, that's so terrifying.
Ozpin's real sus, and I think his plans are dumb. And I think Team Ruby should be like, why would we want to bring back the gods?
Like
We're
why? Like why
fine.
are we doing that? Like
Yeah,
honestly, keep the relics
because
separate forever. I think they should be kept separate forever.
It's incredibly clear that they're just a bunch of petty brothers that have nothing better to do than just mess with each other. Why would we want them back?
Hmm.
Yeah, I also
Something's bad, but at the
yeah.
same time, Ozpin's plan is bad too.
Everyone just has horrible plans except for like Team Ruby, in my opinion. Like all these people in power, their plans suck. Like their plans, everyone
Real
like
life.
yeah, you know what I mean? Everyone in power, they don't know what they're doing. Like everyone, like I don't know. I don't know what side y'all fall on with this whole Aesop Ruby debate. But for me, I feel like Ironwood's plan is fucking idiotic because this woman has a flying army. Like she's on a flying, like she's flying, and you're talking about hiding from her in the sky. What? That's so weird. Like, what are you doing?
And plus, even if he
I,
does
I,
get away, they're gonna starve.
Yeah, like
She's immortal. She can wait. She's immortal.
Yes. Oh.
and Salem
I
proved that she doesn't even need to fly. She literally appeared in his office out of nowhere. She just
yeah,
appeared.
think that was just a projection.
yeah, but that perfection is what led him to breaking basically out of fear.
Yeah,
So even if she's not there, she has an effect.
basically,
Except for she broke Ruby just by talking to her.
all she had to say was like your mama, and then Ruby like died. Like, Ruby like curled up on a ball, and so I just feel like
Salem
the
shows up.
plan was not good. Like the plan was just like you're gonna hide from this woman who has a flying army. Now, granted, maybe he didn't know she had a flying army. That's fair because we, the viewer, know, but he doesn't know. But like, I just think it's silly because she literally appeared in your office out of nowhere. Granted, it was a Grim, but like, okay, Atlas still has flying Grim. Like you can still, she could. Who knows who knows that she couldn't just like take control of a Grim and then just project herself into whatever. So, I think it was a silly plan, but that's neither here nor there. The next ship that I kind of wanted to get everyone's opinion on is some crack ships and crack shipping. How do y'all feel about crack shipping?
Oh, my
Now
favorite.
we're talking.
What'd you say?
I say now we're talking.
Yeah.
No, now we're talking. Yeah.
Okay, I want to go around and everyone like give me your favorite crack ship.
Sunflake, Sun and Wise.
Same.
Yeah.
Thing involving Roman Torchwick.
Oh my god, Roman is everything. Love Roman Torchwick.
Okay. I should probably pick a legit one. Oh, I give my friend a lot of shit for this, but I'm gonna go with what's like the Cinder and Emerald ship called again?
I fuck.
Abuse? I don't know.
That one called
I don't remember.
That one called Blood Gem or something. I don't know.
I remember
But yeah,
the ship name between Cinder and Ruby, but I don't remember the Cinder and Emerald one. Okay.
I would say my crack ship is Cinder and Emerald because I know
that's how it's called.
Yeah.
Emerald.
Yeah,
thank you.
around Volume 5, and we were like, is Cinder in love with, is Emerald in love with Cinder? Like, what's going on there?
I think it's.
I don't know. I'm just saying it because I know it'll piss off my buddy Grim. By the way, Grim, hi.
I think he's actually in this Discord server, so maybe you can say hi to him in this Discord server.
I like
He's gonna hate me.
Shanice is great because I like Fraser Burn and Bumblebee. I also like all of the team pairings except for Enabler, obviously, because
Yeah.
of us.
Oh, that's Enabler. Oof. I thought Enabler was Mercury and Yang.
It's
No.
named Enabler because the guy who started this whole thing only watched the trailers and then thought when she said "Hey sis," that was like, oh, it's just girls saying sisters. But then he was like, oh no, they're siblings. I can't do this. And his friends were like, oh no, you ship the incest. And he's like, stop enabling me.
Oof.
And that's where enabler
Okay.
came from. It's an insult.
Damn.
That's weird. Oof.
I like Bake Alaska. I like anything with Yang and another female. Mostly because I had canon Yang as lesbian. What else do I like? Oh, I like a bunch of ships with Sun.
Sun is great. I feel like Sun, oof. Sun can romance, in my opinion, unless like they're like gay. Like Sun can romance anyone. I feel like that's my headcanon. Sun is the best person to con you out of your pants.
The problem is like we don't have a lot of information on how old Neo is, but I'll always assume that she was either 20, like a little bit older than like the three main girls. So I also like Cinder and Neo, but I don't know if that's a bad thing or not because Cinder's like 25. I'm assuming Neo is 20. I don't know.
I'm gonna say Cinder is around the same age as Winter. I'm gonna say Cinder and Winter are like the same in age.
They are.
Yeah. Around the
So around like 20, 24.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because her and Weiss has like a 5-year age gap, I think.
Yeah. Cinder and Winter, I think they're the same age. For me, I like Sunflakes. I like that because again, I like the idea of someone who is in a position of power, kind of getting knocked off their high horse and falling in love with someone who they normally wouldn't. Now, I do kind of see the problematic-ishness of it because, she would literally be going from calling him a trash can and comparing him to a trash can to being like, I'm in love with you. So it's kind of a big gap. It's kind of a big leap, but I feel like it's a little cute.
Weiss does that with anyone.
Basically. And the other kind of white ship that's a crack ship that I like, I kind of have to like headcanon all of this because like again in the show this would never fucking happen. Adam and Weiss, I feel like if the show went differently, Adam and Weiss could have been a very interesting pair because it's like, okay, we're literally at war. Like my people over here and your people over there, we're literally at war. It's like Romeo and Juliet, like they're forbidden, like they can never be together. Yeah. Also, that kind of like trauma between the girls because Blake would be like, okay, like you literally stole my man. Like, what are you doing?
You're fucking my ex-boyfriend.
You're dating my ex-boyfriend who like fucked me up.
That's actually something I feel like Ruby like would kind of be open to. How come we don't see like any ships that are involved like wow, you're actually dating my ex? That's a little bit
That
weird.
would be so ew to me. That just sounds like a lot of like reality TV or like
Yeah,
stuff
drama.
like
But I feel
Like
like it would be more
Sex and the
entertaining
City.
because the fights are better. The fights in RWBY are better than reality TV fights.
Oh,
You know what I
I
mean?
don't know. Have you watched Real Housewives?
I do. Of Atlanta, I do. But like they don't have no coordination. I don't get any kicks. I don't get any flips. I don't, all they do is like they'll do punches, but the girls on Real Housewives of Atlanta, they don't, or they'll throw something. They like to throw stuff on there. They'll throw drinks, but they don't, But I don't know. I feel like the fights in RWBY over men would be way more entertaining. Like I don't know. Like I feel like RWBY. I miss like the frivolous fights that are just for fun, like the training. We got training fights in Volume 7, but like there was a whole food fight scene in Volume 2 that I just loved. I thought that was everything.
Best
I-
scene of all
Yes.
two.
I hope they do that because I want to see between the pairs who's stronger, like the like Weiss versus Ruby and then Blake versus Yang, and see how they match up. Because like we always see them together, and it's like, oh, we know that like Bumblebee's hugely strong. White Rose is really good teamwork together, and it's like, but how are they just one-on-one versus each other?
Yeah, that would be really
Weiss would
cool.
win.
I feel like in terms
I
of
think so, too.
fighting, Ruby Ruby is this is my issue with Ruby Rose. I love her. She's my favorite character on the show, but they don't really let her. I feel like when they first created her and they gave her a scythe, they did it because like, okay, this is a monster hunting show. She's gonna be fighting like monsters. But then once they realized that, oh, she's gonna have to fight people. How do we have Ruby fight people without fucking murdering them? Like so she just like hits people with like the dull end of her weapon. Like she'll hit people with like the back end of her weapon rather than like the scythe part. And I don't know, that always annoys me because I'm just like, it could be over. You can end it. You can cut that. Like, you can cut that bitch in half. Cut her in half. Just, I don't know. Like, she could have cut Harriet in half, but she didn't.
That was a great fight.
So good. I'm trying to think of like other like really out there ships that like not a whole lot of people know about.
Solar Flare.
Are there any poly ships out there?
Sunny Bees.
Yes.
Sunny Bees.
That's my OT3.
Sunny Bees.
Sunny
Sunny
Bees
Bees
OT3.
is like the. Sunny Bees is the most logical poly ship in RWBY. I want it to happen. I wish it would happen. I would.
I want it endgame.
I would give away my foot. I would let someone cut off my foot for that shit.
Smooth. Same.
That would be amazing.
I would give organs. I would donate my kidneys. You know what I mean? I would do
Refrigerator's
anything for that ship to be canon.
Poly ship of Penny, Ruby, and Weiss.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's
The
cute.
end of
That's
Volume
cute.
Volume
At,
seven.
at, the, at the end of the volume 1.
7, I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
Or like
That was-
like
that
I was
was great.
saying earlier with the whole love triangle with Ironwood and Winter and Crow or whatever. I don't know. I like that as a poly ship. I don't know. I know Winter. I don't know. I know Winter is a little younger, but like I think it could work. I feel like it's cute. I like it. I like it.
I don't think I have a
What about
poly
mom
ship.
ships?
What about what?
Like
Ooh.
Raven and Summer, or someone asked me to draw like Raven and Willow and stuff like that. Those are pretty great.
Fucked up moms.
I think Raven
The only
and
Raven is actually Ruby's mother.
what's her name? Summer. Yes, Summer Rose. Yes, I'm sorry. I for some reason I forgot what Ruby's mom's name was. Raven and Summer. I really want to see what like their relationship was like. I low-key think they had a thing.
I really do too. I really think everyone wanted to fuck Summer.
Everyone did. I think everyone did.
Oh, yeah.
I am
The
hardcore.
moment we saw like the no, Allie, you can go.
I know that you said too about Crow being Ruby's dad, and I don't believe that theory, but I am a hardcore hummingbird shipper, like Crow and Summer.
That is so cute. I think the thing with the whole Team Stark situation.
I think everyone in Team Stark was very early.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think like when we hear each other talk, we're all like, since we're all good people, we're like, let me stop and let the other person talk.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a polite thing to do.
And yeah, it's just polite. I don't know. I'm sorry. If anyone is like, these people are awkward, we're not awkward. We're just nice people, okay?
Yeah, and we have a lot of ideas and we want to talk.
Yeah, like we're all polite. We're
Yeah.
polite. Who was talking though? I think Peter was talking.
Peter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna go off and say like I don't think I have a whole lot of like poly ships that I like. I guess it just comes down to the notion of like I don't like the concept of sharing. Whenever I see like whenever I see a relationship, I'm like, okay, well that's a thing, and like, well, you kind of like want to be faithful. I mean, I've never had any poly relationships, period, because I've had this notion of like I love this person so much I would never even think about being romantically or attracted to anybody else that isn't them.
That's fair. I understand that.
Yeah, that's fair. So
I get that. I feel like you're monogamous, and that's valid, and that's fair. For me, I'm
Oh, yeah.
also monogamous, but like, I don't know. This is, please, 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 anyone who's listening to this, please do not run away with a horrible bisexual stereotype. Please do not do that. But for me, in my situation, being bi, whatever, I school and high school and college is very interesting for me because I'm the kind of person where I'm like, oh, he's hot, oh, she's hot, blah 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 blah. So I've had situations where I'm like, I like two people at once. Maybe I have to choose. But sometimes I'm like, what if I didn't have to choose? What if I could just have both? What if I could just like have my cake and eat it too? And I have been in situations where I was with two people at one time, and everyone was like knowing and consenting in that. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's just about what you're comfortable with. And in terms of character, a lot, and we shipping is a fun thing, and people ship from their own personal desires. People ship because they what their personal taste. So if your personal taste is like, I am monogamous. I wouldn't even think about, looking at anyone else or like doing anything with anyone else. Like, that's valid, and like you can ship from that angle. And I feel like people who are like, I want to ship multiple people, sometimes it's just kind of like, okay, it's from their own personal taste and desires, if that makes any sense.
Almost like a contradictory thing. Like say for example, if we're using hypothetical ships, if you were to ship something like say Rose Garden, but at the same time also say, well, yeah, I also ship White Rose. People
Yeah.
look at you like all crazy. Like, how can you ship a character with two other people and still stay internally consistent?
That's
My
silly in my
friends who aren't really into the fandom but are into RWBY. I'm like, they're like, well, what's your top like favorite ships? I'm like Bumblebee, White Rose, and Freezer Burn, and they're like, but you, how can you do that though? Like Freezer Burn is the other two, and I'm like, I don't know.
Because you can? Like, what?
multi-shipping is great.
People, I don't know. This is I'm going to make a broad generalization, but I feel like a lot of people in the fandom have a hard time with, like, the concept of duality and, like, having, multiple feelings about something. Like, I have this argument with people all the time on various different RWBY subjects, but, like, you can like more than one thing. Like, you can like more than one ship. I like White Rose, but I also like, I'm sorry, I'm so dumb. What is the Blake and White ship? What is that? Checkmate?
Monochrome.
Monochrome. Monochrome. Yeah, Monochrome. I like Monochrome too. But I also like Bumblebee, you know what I mean? I like, different. I like Rose Garden, but my crack ship is Oscar and Whitley because, yeah.
Farm Boys.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I feel like, especially with Whitley, because Whitley is a character that, in my opinion, I know people hate him, but in my opinion, Whitley is just volume 1 Weiss. You know what I mean? He's still in that house. He has no friends. He has no interaction with anyone else. So I don't understand why anyone would expect him to be anything other than, like, how Weiss was and how Jacques is. So I feel like Oscar could do for Whitley what RWBY did for Weiss, which is kind of like soften him and melt his heart and make him see the value in other people. I think it's a cute ship. When Oscar was at the dinner party, I was like, please run into Whitley, please run into Whitley, please run into Whitley and have a conversation.
That would be great.
That would have been cool.
That would have been cute, And instead of, a lot of people thought that scene was annoying when Nora like put that food on him. I also thought it was annoying because I was like, okay, like instead of having this weird Nora shenanigans, why don't you have Oscar, be like, hi, how are you? I'm Oscar. How are you? Do you want to date? You know what I mean? And then have Weiss sneak off and go do her thing. I feel like that would have been a better distraction than like, dumping food on him.
There was something I felt like that could have came up in earlier conversation, but there seems to be this like weird notion of like people like if you explain or like kind of like I guess you can say prefix like, oh, I like these ships, but I like these ships for the purposes of like I recognize that they're not going to be a thing. And then people kind of change their tune, like, okay, well, now you're kind of allowed to like it so long as you accept that the huge possibility of it not being a thing. Like that, like to me, I can see where they're coming from, but I also feel like that kind of diminishes like someone's enjoyment of a ship if they kind of genuinely like it.
Yeah. It's like you're raining on someone's parade, and I don't understand why people need to do that because, like, we take it seriously. Like, we're anime fans, like, we're animation fans. But at the end of the day, sis, it's a show. Like, this isn't real life. Like, this is just fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not that serious.
There needs to be, like if we're talking about, like, oh, we think these ships are definitely going to happen, and someone comes in being like, well, what about, like, Ruby and Nora or something like that, and it's like, that's a good ship, but we're talking about canon.
Yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be like a little bit of difference because I don't want to disrespect anyone, but it's like I look like an asshole if I'm like, that's definitely not me.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's more about approach than what you actually mean to say. Because I've made this mistake too. Because sometimes when I see a Bumblebee post, sometimes I'm like, I have to kind of toe the line where it's like, okay, what is this post intended to do? Like, for example, with a lot of Allie's posts, I have to assess, okay, is this post meant for conversation and debate, or is this post meant for celebration?
Yes,
if the post is meant for celebration, then I'm going to tell myself, hi, Max, don't put your gripes with Bumblebee in these comments because that's not what this post is for. Now, if this post is for discussion, then you can put in how you feel like they should do more, blah, 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 blah. So I feel like you just have to, like, assess the situation.
Yes, exactly.
There are so many people who start drama and discourse on joke posts, and I'm like, it's just a joke. Please don't take it serious. I'm just trying to have some fun. Don't.
Intention is really hard to it is almost like really hard to like guess when it comes to like text-based posts on like public forums, and like I think it just comes like naturally, like the more you just spend time on forums and stuff, is like you can kind of guess like when a person is like not being serious or not, but it also goes on the note, it also depends on the person posting it, who like if they want to be completely obvious and like actually, because there is a way to type out a very sarcastic post, like just from the way that you construct it. But if you're not going out with that outset, then yeah, there's a lot of people that can misread something because, well, they're reading it, they're not actually.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation like a week or so ago. I don't remember what the post was, but I think we were like, oh, well, I know so and such people that are XYZ, and I'm like, I think it was one of those like cis people suck jokes or whatever, and I was having this conversation with you about how a lot of times people who are in these oppressed minority groups or whatever, they have these jokes and they don't really necessarily mean anything. Like, I guess you could kind of psychoanalyze it as like internal rebellion, or maybe a little, like, I'm systematically oppressed and I don't have rights, but I can make this joke, you know what I mean? And I feel like 95% of it is just like, it's just a joke and it's just kidding, and it doesn't really have any harm because, again, cis people suck. Okay, great. So and so can say that, but like, cis rights, the rights of cisgender people are not under attack. People aren't telling cisgender people you can't do this and you can't do that. So I feel like it's about the context of who is saying it, and also, what, like, the context of like what group they belong in, or like when people talk, when I hear a lot of people on Twitter, there's a certain part of the fandom that makes these kind of posts, but like their gripe is like, oh my god, I'm so sick of everyone in the RWBY community making these like straight jokes, and oh my god, like, and I'm just like, part of me can sort of see it, but part of me is also like, okay, but like, what is this really doing? And there's a difference between making, like a LGBT joke about straight people and straight people making an LGBT joke, because there's context and there's history. If there's a history of like systematic oppression and violation of rights and prejudice and all this other stuff connected to it, then okay, that's a problem. But there's not any on the flip side. So I like, LGBT people don't oppress straight people. That doesn't happen. Black people don't oppress white people. That doesn't happen. Like, that's not a thing. Trans people don't oppress cis people. That's not a thing that happens. So I feel like you have to look at the person, number one. Like, if Allie is like, Bumblebee sucks, I'm gonna be like, okay, Allie's joking because it's Allie. But you know what I mean? But if Allie, is like, straight people suck, I'm like, okay, well, Allie is straight. Like, she's not gonna, she doesn't really think this. Like, she's a straight person. You know what I mean? So you have to look at the context of the joke, the historical context of the joke, and who's saying it. In my opinion, if that makes any sense, I don't know. I was just saying.
Not to mention, I've always believed in the turnabout is fair play, meaning that if you're allowed to make fun of someone, then you're allowed to then the person being made fun of is allowed to shoot across the aisle. It's only fair.
Yeah, ish. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people just have to learn how to read their room, and for me, like I said, like, it's not hard for me to do that, but I guess for other people it may be a little more difficult, and that's valid. And I just feel like, in these situations, we just have to have more conversations
About shipping.
We're talking about crack shipping.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
We really know how to get off topic. I'm gonna put in the title RWBY shipping panel, and then like featuring a bunch of other like topics. Honestly.
Yeah.
What were we? Yeah, crack. Does anyone else have any like crack ships?
I don't know if this would count as a crack ship, but I would consider Sea Monkey a crack ship.
I don't. After reading this Before the Dawn book, I don't. But yeah.
Wants to smash.
I've actually not read After the Dawn yet. I need to get on that.
Okay, well, we won't talk about After the Dawn then because you haven't read it. But after reading the book, I definitely get Sea Monkey
vibes. Deal about
vibes.
spoilers. I'm gonna read the book anyway.
What'd you say?
Big stink about spoilers. If I'm gonna eventually sit down and watch it, play it, or read it, I really don't give two rats' asses about spoilers.
I mean, okay, so I guess I'll talk about spoilers then, since you said it was fine. But I don't know. Sea Monkeys is the kind of ship where it's like, I want it to happen, and I think that they might give it to us actually, because they don't do much in the book. And actually, I don't know if y'all seen. I have a Before the Dawn review, so if y'all want to watch that, I'll put that in cards. But I mentioned in my Before the Dawn review how I was very disappointed in like the Team Sun aspect of it. Like, I feel like instead of it being like a Coffee and Sun book like it was advertised, it was more of like a Team Coffee, and then Sun Wukong is there too, and he does stuff. But like nobody else in Team Sun really does anything. I mean, there's conflict, but I feel like and I feel like it's more of like, okay, Neptune and Sun are on the same page, and Scarlet and Sage are on the same page, and Scarlet and Sun are like, okay, well, of course Neptune, is always going to be on
Yeah,
Sun,
so
and they said they used a wording that made me think, oh, is Neptune
I
like
remember it.
always on Sun because
So
he has a
there's
crush?
Yeah, so that's what the scene that I want to say right now. So basically, I remember Neptune. I remember the scene perfectly. Neptune in the book is like, "I'm with Sun," and Scarlet says, "Of course you are." And it literally says in the book that Neptune blushes, and then says, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, like it was that. It was like, okay,
It
they
goes
might give
well.
us the ship.
Like it's there. It's And also a little bit on what you said about Before the Dawn. I can get where you're coming from, but at the same time, we got Sun's backstory and how he got his semblance,
I
and
love Sun. No, I think the Sun part of the
yeah,
book was great.
and we got why Neptune is afraid of water, what his semblance is. So we found out about stuff about Team Sun too.
We
No,
did, but I just feel like now part of this could be me just missing things because I in my initial review I said that I was disappointed in Sage because Sage is an LGBT character and we didn't get much about that. I mean, I know the book isn't about that, but like for example, in After the Fall, Coco gets to like be really gay and make all these comments and do all this shit, and I didn't when I listened to the book because I got it on audiobook. When I listened to the book, I didn't really hear a lot of that from Sage, but later on Twitter I found out that like there's a section where like he has a little thing with Nolan. I completely missed that. So maybe like a lot of this is just me
You mean
missing
Scarlet?
things.
Scarlet, yeah, he winked Nolan.
Sage is
yeah,
the big boy.
So yeah, Sage is the big boy and Scarlet is like the twink.
Yeah.
I mean I don't know how else to describe him. I'm sorry. Like oops.
No. It's fairly accurate.
yeah.
I mean, like, sorry, but like it is. I don't know. I did not like Scarlet before this book, though. I don't know. I still kind of low key don't like Scarlet because I don't know. I felt like okay, we found out that he was gay in like some random RWBY manga thing that
Anthology,
may or may
yeah.
not be canon, and then like the only line he has is the most stereotypically gay thing you could say. I got sand in my shoes. Oh my god, I got sand in my shoes. Oh my god, that's so bad. I just was like, wow, like way to like have a gay character do absolutely nothing and be so stereotypical.
Yeah, Max. Don't forget, Max. We're working off of the Carrie chakra logic. It's canon until it's not.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I have going
It's
back
not
to
just
represent.
his logic, it's how secondary sources work most of the time.
Oof. I mean,
Like
I don't know.
everything is like if it's a secondary source, like if you're reading a book about a show, it's canon until it's not canon, is how it usually goes. It's called like secondary sourcing, I believe, or something along those lines.
That makes sense. I don't know. But going back to representation for a minute, I feel like, for me personally, I have a big problem with this whole blink if you miss it representation or like representation that's like not necessarily in the show. Obviously, with these books, we're getting way more insight into the characters, and I appreciate these books, and I like these books. But part of me is like, could we have had some of this in the show? Like, Coco and After the Fall, obviously Coco got to do all this stuff because the book was about her and her team. And obviously RWBY is a show that doesn't have a lot of time and has a lot of characters. So I understood all that. But part of me is like, I'm really irked that we get all this like representation in books and not the show. Because number one, more people I think it's fair to say that more people watch RWBY the show than look at the mangas and the side shit. So I feel like the representation, part of like why representation matters. Not only does it validate like us and LGBT people, but it also normalizes it in society. You know what I mean? It shows other people are like, oh, like these people are cool and they're normal just like us. You know what I mean? Like Tara and Saffron, that was really good because it showed, okay, like lesbians can have children and have families and be normal. You know what I mean? So I feel like that aspect isn't being portrayed in the show because and they're just shoving it into this book. And I'm like, okay, I really wish that it was in the show and not in the book, but I understand why it has to be in the book because they don't have a lot of
Maybe it
time.
will be. I mean, we still have to go to Backyo, so maybe who knows? Maybe we will see something with Coco and Scarlet in when we get to
I
the
would
Backyo arc.
imagine
Maybe they have lovers. Yeah, who
that
knows?
they
Maybe. By the time
need
they
to
get to
figure out what
Vacuo,
happened.
Nolan and Scarlet should be a thing by then, hopefully.
But Max, you were asking, like, we should probably get some more stuff like this in the show proper. I do remember a tweet though that was from Cal, like when After the Fall was like released, and she made the notion, and she made the comment of anyone who thinks Coco was not a lesbian before this book clearly wasn't paying attention during season 3, because it was the Coco and Yatsuhashi versus Emerald and Mercury fight where she's kind of like sizing up Emerald and saying and complimenting her on her outfit, and Emerald basically giving her snark like, "Oh, I'm not going to get my blood on my outfit," and then Coco responds by going, "Ooh, I like her."
But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that was kind of no shade to anyone who like really understood that. For me, I just thought that was generic girl fight talk. I thought that was kind of like vague, like, oh, like she's like, I thought Coco was sizing her up as a combatant rather than like she's hot. Now that you said that, I can be like, okay, yeah, I can see how she said that. But like on first glance, I'm like, But in, for example, in the book, when she's describing, what is that? What is her name? I'm horrible with names. The girl Carmine.
Carmine.
When she's talking about
He
Carmine,
flirts with her before the hunt.
yeah, she's
He flirts with
when
her
you
right
read
before.
about how she flirts
I
with
like that.
Carmine, it's obvious that she's, flirting from a. It's obvious that she's flirting. It's obvious that she's attracted to Carmine. Rather than Emerald in the show, it's like, okay, even me being a big old fat gay, like, I didn't see that. I was like, oof, like, she's just sizing her up as a combatant. You know what I mean? So, I agree with Kyle that
There's a
anyone
lot
who
of
reads
people
the
like that.
book should know that she's a lesbian. But if anyone watched the show and I was like, "Oh, she's a lesbian," by the way, and they would be like, "Oh," I could understand them saying, "Oh," because like it's not an obvious thing.
There's and when they fight, I feel like there's very specific characters that give off this aura. When they fight,
I mean, they all have aura.
I mean, like aura as in like the feeling that they
Mood,
give,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
vibe that they give off. It's like, when Neon fights with Yang, I really think Neon is flirting with her the entire time just to like mess her up. And even though Neo doesn't talk, I still get the vibe just from her body language of like her smirking at Yang and stuff, and that's like getting in her head. Like oh, she's like, oh, you look so much prettier when your eyes are red or something like that. And it just flusters
Yeah,
Yang.
that's
And
fair.
she's like, oh, your boobs are big, and she's like, oh, stop it, ooh woo.
That's true. I guess I can agree with that, but I guess my thing with that is what was I trying to say? I feel like you're right. There is a sort of like aura that people give off that like that's like, oof, that's big gay energy. But like I feel like a lot of people who aren't LGBT don't really necessarily have the ability to sense that, because I think a
They're
part of
just
it is like what I said
galvanized.
earlier is kind of like the thing with straight goggles, where like even some of us have it. Like I had to take off my straight goggles to look at Blake and Yang and how that's valid and how that there's a thing. But I think I was talking to Allie about that months and months and months ago, where it's like I'm frustrated with like the fact that we
Yeah.
have to do all of that. Like I wish that like it could just be like a regular life, a regular thing where it's like, wow, she has cat ears, she's hot. You know what I mean? Like let's date, like, let's go out. I mean, there's this video. No shade to Xiaolong. I love Xiaolong. I think she did this video where like she was talking about the subtext of the subtext of Blake and Yang, and like why it's not forced and all this subtext. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's valid. That's great. I love you for doing that. But like, why do I have to sit here and go through all this subtext and look at all this evidence? Like, why can't we just have, okay, they're gay, like, here, go, let's go. Not even like they're gay and they're in a relationship. Just like, okay, they're gay, they're here, like, we're gonna do something with it. Like, why do I have to sit here and like, put on my detective hat and like look for all the clues? Like, I don't know. I just think that's silly, and I feel like in other shows we don't have to do that. And I wish that we didn't have to do that with this show.
We have to do that with every couple in the show, though. Like, I mean, the thing with Bumblebee is that they follow in the footsteps of Renora, beat by beat by beat. So they're a canon straight ship, and they're doing the exact same things and more. It's just that I think that Rooster Teeth doesn't need to spoon feed people, but it would be nice if they did outright, like if Yang or Blake outright said something.
I
But the
feel
thing
like
is,
they're
I don't think
afraid
that's
of
their
something.
character.
Yeah, I feel like they're just afraid to touch Rames himself, and they just barely touch it, but they're afraid to go full in, And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a bit of a problem,
That yeah, that's
It,
fair. And but like okay with Renora, like again, I can definitely see that they're following in Renora's footsteps. But again, I have issues with Renora because it's like okay,
yeah.
the difference between Blake and Yang
It's
and
the
Renora
hormones.
is Ren and Nora went into the show knowing each other. Like from the beginning, they knew each other. They were following. She was following him around everywhere. Maybe Ren looked a little annoyed. Who knows? But like they've known each other for a long time. And again, I completely agree that people can be friends for years and not realize their feelings until later in life. But I just feel like okay, maybe we could have done this in volume 3, maybe in volume 4. I don't feel like we needed to wait 7 years for a Renora moment and a Renora kiss. I don't think
It
that was
was very
necessary.
rushed.
That wasn't. We could have done this a long time ago. Blake and
Yeah,
Yang,
11 volumes.
if they want to wait until volume 8 or 9, like to do something, that's fine. I understand because if we're going from okay in volume 6 they decided we're gonna do Bumblebee. If we get something in volume 8 or 9, I'd be happy with that. Like I've definitely evolved in my Bumblebee is it queerbaiting is it not stance because I think I did a video and I was very ballsy and I called it the truth about Bumblebee, and basically what I was saying in that video was I think Bumblebee is great. I just wish they would give it to us, and I feel like with people from the show talking about it and everyone kind of hyping it up, my fear with Bumblebee is that we're all excited and we're all hoping for it, and then my fear is like the show is gonna end. We were like, but wait, where was the Bumblebee? Like I've been hoodwinked, I've been queerbaited. Oh my
I
god, like they
get
didn't do
that.
it.
Like at this point, I don't know if you noticed, but I feel like there's definitely something coming in volume 8 because the official Ruby page, for the first time since they exist, they retweeted a fan art of a ship that isn't Renora, and they retweeted a Bumblebee fan art, and they retweeted Bumblebee stuff, and they made a Bumblebee reference to the Transformers. Like that's something that happened just now lately, and they basically they made a reference to the Bumblebee Transformers. They retweeted two people who basically put their merch together as Bumblebee, and then they retweeted a fan art, which is straight up just Bumblebee. The fan art is Bumblebee. It has the hashtag, it's Bumblebee, it's all this, and they retweeted it. And they never did that for any other ship besides Renora, and maybe Arcos, but I don't think they did it for Arcos either. So I feel like they just got the green light right now. Okay, you can start retweeting stuff from Bumblebee. There will be something in Volume 8 big that will happen.
Yeah,
Hopefully, but I hope.
yeah.
Have
I
you
don't know.
ever seen the one? Ruby used to have a show called like After Ruby, where it's like people who don't work on the show but are on to talk to one of the people from the show.
So we
And
rewind.
Rewind, I
Gray,
love that.
yeah, Ruby Rewind. I think
I
his
love
name's
it.
Gray, was the guy who like ran it, and he right out asked Carrie, he's like, "Is Bumblebee happening?" And Carrie said,
Chad,
"If I said
Chad.
yes,
Yeah.
Chad, yeah, if I said yes, then you wouldn't sit here and watch it." Like,
Yeah. So
I'd watch it.
basically,
Like I'd tune in.
Carrie said, "Yes, it's gonna happen, but you have to wait for it because it wouldn't be as good if I just sat here and told you yes."
yeah, yes, it will happen. He was like, I remember that he had like a moment of silence. He was like, just watch the show, just watch the show. And then they literally had an episode of Ruby Rewind in which it was literally called Barbara and the Bumblebees, and they were talking about, I think they were talking about episode 12 of Volume 6 back then. It was definitely something about Bumblebee. It was
Yeah,
about
it
after the
was.
whole Ada fight. Like it's out there. It will happen. Like I at this point I don't have any doubt that it will happen. It's just a question of when it will happen.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say by the end of Atlas,
The Atlas arc,
it's gonna be
same.
pretty obvious.
Yeah.
If it's not done by the end of Atlas, then we may have a problem on our
If,
hands.
like I said in that video, that if
doesn't
it's
look
not
good.
if it's not done by volume 8 or 9, I will consider myself a little queerbaited. And I've definitely, since then, it's been a year since then, I definitely feel like if it's not done by Atlas, I feel like I can feel a little queerbaited. But I definitely feel like since the people from the show keep talking about it, I feel like at this point they've kind of promised it to us. So I feel like if we don't get it, I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of bad. But again, I want to have faith, and I want to say like not if but when. I don't know. I've just been kind of scorned in the past with different shows, like saying, "Hi, we're gonna do this," and then they don't. They don't do it. They don't do
Yeah.
it. Like.
I
I didn't even finish
there's
Voltron because
no
I was so
doubt.
hurt. I'm like, oh my god, you hurt my fucking feelings, Voltron. I'm not even gonna finish your show, and I liked
Oh my
you.
god.
Oh,
Yes.
my goodness.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I've been hurt in the past with this whole queerbaiting situation, and I don't know. I just really, I don't know. I know in my heart that Rooster Teeth is not going to do anything to purposely hurt anyone, and that's kind of what's getting me through. But I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic with Bumblebee, but and on all the
Especially in
relationships.
season
But it's
7.
kind of, it's frustrating because you see other shows that just do it. They just like, okay, this is my boyfriend. Hi, how are you? Let's go to the plot now.
With season 7, I mean, they go on dates, they flirt, they have other characters saying there's more going on here, and then Ruby's in the middle of that conversation and doesn't say, "Oh, I don't know about that, Nora." She's like, she doesn't deny it. Ruby,
Yeah.
I think, knows from volume 6 because she hugs Blake, looks at Yang, smirks at her, and Yang is like, "Oh, okay, I see that you know me."
I see that you know me, but it's just like I feel like that whole scene with Ren and Nora and Ruby was them acknowledging them. Not, I feel like that was just them acknowledging, "Hi, we're being very ambiguous on purpose, and we're like gonna give you crumbs, and like you're gonna debate about it." And I'm not saying that like from my perspective there's not something going on. I 155% think there's something going on. I just wish that like we didn't have to tiptoe around it. Like I wish we could just like say, I know, like we're all saying, oh, it's a date, but like it takes 2 seconds to just say, oh yeah, me and Blake are going on a date. Like bye, have fun.
So that was actually something I was going to bring up earlier, is that how much of this confusion do you think would be null and void if, like, as early as season 2, like during the prom scene where Yang and Ruby are just standing next to each other, and well, actually, it's that scene where Jean and Ruby are standing next to each other. Switch out Jean with Yang, and then simply have her simply acknowledge, like, Ruby, why aren't you dancing? And then, of course, they can make another heels joke. And then Ruby would kind of look at her sister being like, well, Yang, why aren't you dancing? What's your excuse? And she would say something like, well, none of the girls here are pretty enough for me to dance with.
Like it takes 2 seconds. Just put it in there. It takes 2 seconds. Why are you denying us of this glory?
But back then, it was still kind of brand new territory to have gay people in shows.
Yeah,
Maybe in animated shows, I'll give you that. But in broader media, I wouldn't agree.
Broader, yeah, but it's if you want to like get picked up by other things, like Rooster Teeth's other show is being picked up by Adult Swim and stuff. It's like at that time they were so new at everything, and I think it's okay. But there were still moments between Bumblebee, like huge ones. Yang was the only one who understood how to get Blake out of her rut, and Blake even said to Sun, like, yeah, we are technically going together, but I'm saving my first dance for someone else. And it was
Yeah.
like, step off, sis.
I don't know. I feel like the whole a lot of people look at like the most romantic time with Blake and Yang as like the atom fight at the end of it, and then like the scene where they open up to each other. Again, I feel like that's another classic instance of like, since other characters don't interact as much, when we have characters interact on this deep of a level, people take it as more than what it necessarily is intended to be. Because for me, it's like I'm telling you about how I have abandonment issues and my mom ran away from me. That doesn't give me I want to cuddle vibes. That gives me like, okay, I'm opening up. I'm just opening up in general vibes. Like I feel like Gang would have told that story to like any of her friends who she thought needed to hear it. I don't necessarily take that as a
In the
romance thing.
context of RWBY, in other shows, yes, anyone would have said that to their friends. But in the context of RWBY, when they show us a scene and show us like them going out on the to a dance and stuff like that, or holding hands or doing this or that, in the context, they don't do that. So they don't have like Weiss saying what Weiss talking about her abandonment issues with Weiss until, or Yang talking to Weiss until like it's about Blake, or um, or they don't have like Jean like talking to Yang about it or anything like that. It just in the show we have to go off of what is in the show, and in the show that would be romantic because they don't give a lot of moments between other characters. So that's what we have to base it off of.
That's fair, and I will say that I agree that the whole dance scene with her saving the dance and them dancing, yes, I feel like that's perfectly fair game to like say that is evidence, that is romantic, that is that. For me, and you're right in the fact that like since this is how the show is, we know that if someone's talking to someone for more than 5 minutes, then they're probably romantic.
Yeah.
I just wish that it wasn't like that, and we had like
Yes.
better character interaction.
I
But since it
agree.
is like that, then I can't agree. I just feel like things like saving her from her abusive ex boyfriend, like I feel like Ruby or anyone who was there would have done that. I don't think that was inherently romantic. But I
Yeah, but
definitely see how that is something that people would take because again, about straight goggles, if that was Sun who, saved her from Adam and they fought Adam together, oh the Black Sun shippers, they would be celebrating. They would say their ship has sailed.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's
and
They'd be shouting from the
in
fight.
media. It's very romantic for someone to help you through an abusive situation. In real life, anyone would do that, but in media, like TV shows and movies, usually the one who kind of helps you through it is then the one that the person looks to and is like, "Wow, like we should date." So it would make sense that if Sun was there, people would be popping off. Sun wasn't there, and Sun also was like, "You're where you need to be now. You don't need
Yeah.
me."
and that's why I was talking about volume 3 ending earlier, because the end of the volume is focused on Young and Blake. Sun is absent.
Mm-hmm.
If,
Yeah.
if in the scene where Young lost her arm, you replace Young by Sun, I think Black Sun shippers will be everywhere saying that is canon. But
Yeah,
for
again,
us,
yeah, I
we have to
definitely
discuss
100%
that.
agree. And again, that's I feel like again, it is the responsibility of the fans to take off your straight goggles and look at it from another perspective. And again, I've been guilty of this so many fucking times. And I think that in media, especially the way that things normally go. Like if someone saves you from that sort of situation, like yeah, you're gonna see that as romantic. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of times in a show like this, where they're all like monster hunting, like save the world type people, I don't. For me personally, in romantic coding, I don't see that as like something
I
that I would
agree.
code as romance. I would say like, oh,
I,
they're doing their job. They're saving each other.
I
I don't
feel
know.
that. But
I
then
agree.
there's
I
other
Yeah,
agree.
stuff on
100%.
top
But
of it.
you have also the way the scene is framed. In volume 3, it's framed as Young Arif is it's Adam saying, "I'm going to kill everyone you love." The word is choose.
Yes.
And then they
Even
looks at Yang.
even when Young and Blake are holding, Blake is holding a Young hand, you have the camera that pans out to show Sun looking at Blake and Young holding hand. And it's
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It's done purposely. It's not just there to say, yeah, it could be everyone, it could be anyone. It's done to show that the two have a bond. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. It would be better if We was more explicit with it, but
It is what it is.
Yeah.
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 Again, I don't
I mean,
know. I hope it gets better, but it is what it is, and I definitely agree that there is something there. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say like, oh, there's nothing there because anyone could have done it. I just think that that it's a sort of thing that anyone could have done, but I know why. For example, any RWBY could have fucking saved Blake, but I feel like obviously it was Yang because story wise there was substance to it. Story wise, they completed an arc together. Story wise, they both kind of overcame the person or the obstacle that was inhibiting their growth. So again, I understand why that scene meant so much to like the B community. I just have my own personal skepticisms comparing it to other forms of media where LGBT representation is like a thing.
I think if RWBY was there though, oh sorry, if RWBY was there though, like Adam would not say the same things that he said. Like why? Like he said something very incel. Like
why would she choose you?
Why does she like you or something like that?
What does she even see in you? That's what I want to say actually.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, like what are we doing?
Lines that make it obvious. It's Adam screaming in rage. What does she even see in you? And Nora saying, "Just friends." That's basically what for me is like. They are screaming in your face that they will be a team.
Character outside saying, yes, there's two are a couple. It's not just us. It's the characters.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole Adam B's debate. I don't think that's a very productive conversation. But what I will say is, in terms of that whole situation, is I feel like there was a lot of noise in terms of that discussion. In terms of like, there were some people who were on the whole I'm not really for it train, where some of those people were like, I'm hurt because of other reasons. Some of those people were like, I'm just homophobic. I just don't like people. I'm going to mute you for a second. Hold on. Yes?
No, one thing.
Okay.
I was going to back up
I'm doing
Max
something
on,
now.
and I hope he comes back to hear this.
Kyron, come back.
I was going to back him up saying that it's okay to be skeptical
So
about how authentic.
I'm going to be done here in about 30 minutes.
Because
I'll come back when I'm ready
it's
for you,
okay
okay?
to recognize that something is like not living up to something that you thought it could be. And that plays into like my biggest fear with Bumblebee is that I'm not convinced that Bumblebee won't be canon because I think it will be. But my biggest fear is that it's not going to be what everyone thinks it's going to be. I initially think like it's going to happen, and when it does happen, it's not going to be like a big old splash in the water. It's going to be like a tiny little droplet in a bucket, and people are going to have the response of, "That's it."
Oof.
That's what we build up to. We
waited
9 volumes for this.
Yeah. Oof. I don't know. I'm sorry. My nephew wanted something, but I agree.
We'll just have to wait to see.
I agree, but I just feel like we're gonna have to wait and see. I hope that's not the case. I feel like my rule of representation is I feel like it's good representation if you can compare it to something that would do the same thing. But I feel like for it to in my eyes, for it to be good representation, it has to be treated just like Renora or Arcos. Like if it's like, okay, maybe we'll hold pinkies and go to the G-Spire. Like, no, either give me a Renora or Arcos style kiss or don't do it, in my opinion. Like treat it the same. Treat it how you would treat any other ship.
I would say a good standard to keep when it comes to these kinds of ships, not just for RWBY, but just in general for like any other future thing that comes across. Because I know, like recently, Owl House had something similar to that, where there's a lot of like. I'm unfamiliar with Owl House. I know it's popular. I don't know the main character's name or whatnot, but I did see like a cool little tweet today. I think I liked it actually, but that's beside the point. But my standards for when it comes to LGBT plus rep in other media is that not only do you have to know like what type of subject matter you're dealing with here. Like it comes down to like writing what you know. Like you have to know this like forward, backwards, and sideways from every conceivable angle. But another thing you have to do is that you have to find a way to where not only do you know what you're writing about, but you also have to write it in such a way to where it doesn't come off as like you're sort of like trying to convince people that this is okay, but you're just trying to take small steps in order to like normalize it.
Which is why the Tara and Saffron relationship was so iconic, in my fucking opinion. Yeah,
so
it was.
speaking of the Owl House, am I the only one? No, KFC watched it too. So what you said right now, yeah. For Luz, that's the character, main character name. Her name is Luz. It's basically she's confirmed the first bisexual protagonist, and basically Dana Terrace. I actually have the tweet right here. She posted a tweet and basically she said, in Dev, I was very open about my intentions to put queer kids in the main cast. I'm a horrible liar, so sneaking it in would have been hard. When we were greenlit, I was told by certain Disney leadership that I could not represent any form of bi or gay relationship on the channel. I am bi, I want to write a bi character, damn it. Luckily, my stubbornness paid off, and now I am very supported by current Disney leadership. Not to mention the amazingness of this crew. So basically, she straight up came out and said, yep, she's bi, the first bi Disney protagonist, and it's actually something that will happen. It will be okay. Like the Owl House is still on its first season. It has only 16 episodes, and the main relationship has already progressed so much.
Yeah.
Like there's just, it's great.
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
I recommend watching
that's
it. Please watch it.
Yeah, I'll get around to watching it just because it just looks like such a beautiful show to watch, like just from an
It
animation
is.
angle.
It's very wholesome. It's actually very wholesome and light. Like it
Yeah.
has a lot of comedy, more or less, but it has very angsty moments where it just hurts your heart too. But overall, it's wholesome and funny, and it's a really feel good show. You know.
I wanted to talk about what Peter said about writing what you know. I don't know. Before my nephew walked in, I was talking about like some of the noise at the end of Volume 6 with Bumblebee, and I felt like a lot. Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of it was just like dumb men and dumb homophobes just being dumb. But I feel like some of it was like I don't know. Some of it was like internal pain from other aspects of the story that weren't good. Like I don't know. I did a video. I did a similar style of video to this with Fat Man Falling, and we talked about like the finest racism arc and how it wasn't great. For me, at the end of Volume 6, my upsetness wasn't that it didn't have anything to do with Bumblebee because obviously that's my ship. Those are my girls. But it was mainly how the whole Faunus arc ended, and it was really muddy and it wasn't very good, and I was honestly quite offended, and that's kind of where my kind of came in with it. But Miles and Carrie, they were kind of like, okay, we realized that we didn't really know what we were doing in that aspect, so we backed away from it, and while some people disagree with that, I actually really respect them for that because I think that if you recognize that, hi, I don't know what I'm doing here, and you kind of back away from it, I feel like that's much better than holding on to your pride and saying, I'm going to continue to write this. Because Volume 7, we didn't get a whole lot of like White Fang, Faunus arc stuff. Some people were upset. I was kind of happy because I was like, please stop writing about this. Please stop. I'm really hurt. Like, please stop. So I don't know. I feel like at the end, I feel like that's where some of the whole, Volume 6 backlash came. I don't think it was all, just because people hated Bumblebee. I think like it was overall disappointment with that character and, the story and how that ended. Because, the whole Blake and Adam and Yang and the Fauna storyline kind of wrapped up together, and I don't know, it was weird, it was muddy, oof, it wasn't great.
That's valid.
I do put a lot of stock in like general like writing structures because that's the stuff that gets my like pants in a britch. It's just like when things don't when things are inconsistent even within the context of the show proper. Like if I have to like do a whole bunch of mental gymnastics to just make all of this seem plausible, then I'm not going to consider it a well-written series.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's just in terms of like talking about real shit, like, you know, anyone can like really, you know, I'm not really fussy when it comes to like magic and like, you know, how this and that works and Salem and the guys. Like, that's all fantasy stuff. That's all entertainment. That's all sauce. But when you try to like talk about real world issues and tackle real world subjects like, you know, LGBT people or racism, I feel like, especially if you're not a part of that subsection or group, you have to either A, consult someone that's part of that group, or B, do your research. And I definitely on the racism aspect, they didn't. I don't think they did the research at all. But in terms of the LGBT aspect, I feel like they try. I feel like they're constantly striding and trying to do better. And Kirsty is LGBT and she's on the writing staff now, so that's really good. I feel like the future of it is going to be good because now we have someone that is a part of that group on, you know, the panel. So that's good. On the writing staff. I'm sorry. That's good. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's better when you either have someone who knows what they knows from that experience, or you educate yourself. I'm not saying that they didn't try with the whole fairness equality story arc. I just think that they were not educated on the subject.
Yeah, I can applaud them for like at least trying, but if the results did not match what they set out to do, then like I have to write it out as like you guys didn't meet your own. You guys didn't meet your own goalposts, so
It wasn't good. I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of it.
But there was something I wish we would have gotten to, and this is still on the topic of shipping. Is who here is familiar with a YouTube channel called Overly Sarcastic Production?
I think I
know
do.
of
Hold
it.
on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, two characters. They call themselves Red and Blue. But anyways, Red does this whole. Red had a video on her Trope Talk series about the relationship tropes, and and she mentions that.
Oh, I watched that.
Yeah, she mentioned some of the pitfalls that come into like writing romance into your narratives, and one of them was actually the thing I feared the most for both Bumblebee and Renora, which is when you continue the story after you confirm the relationship, and now you sort of have to treat these two individual characters as one character.
I can see that, but I feel like I don't know. Can you kind of expound on how you kind of feared that for like Ren and Nora?
My initial fear was like even during Ren and Nora's like introduction, the notion of like we're already introducing two new characters that have pre-established history even before like the canonical events of the show. And so now we kind of have two options. We can either develop these two individually and then proceed with the relationship as follows, or we can sort of throw the relationship on the treadmill, hit the speed button and then just kind of like expedite their relationship and then make these two develop at the same time.
I get that. I feel that. I don't know. I wasn't necessarily worried about that for Renora in terms of the relationship because I felt like they kind of already had that problem going through the gate. Like, you know, it's not like, oh, it's not like Nora Valkyrie and, you know, like Ren. It's like Ren and Nora. Like, that's their name. It's Ren and Nora. It's Renora. And it was kind of always like they're a pair. And, like, you know, a lot of people make the joke that, like, they can't be 5 feet apart from each other without feeling actual physical pain. And a lot of people especially had that critique of Bumblebee in Volume 7, which I'm not going to say it was insane, but I'm gonna say it wasn't warranted because I think Bumblebee is kind of a situation where you have these people who met each other, they sort of had a thing, they separated, and now they're kind of relearning each other. Because all of the girls, like when they went on their separate journeys, they grew as people. So when they came back together, they weren't the same. They weren't not the same hoes they were in Volume 3. They're different. They're changed. They're better. So I feel like it would only make sense if you're relearning someone. It would make sense if you're relearning a person, especially when you're sort of debating whether you're going to be in a romantic relationship with them. So for Bumblebee, I don't think it's a valid critique, but for Renora, I definitely see the fear because it's like they're kind of always together and they don't really get to do things separately. So I was very excited when I was like, Ren, no Nora. Okay, like let's let's go. Like let's have Ren be an individual.
I actually felt that way during one of the episodes in season 7, actually, where like Ironwood was like slowly becoming more authoritarian, and out of all the people in the room that said yes, General, it was Ren of all people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that like Nora was like obviously not down with Ironwood initially, and just hearing Ren say that, I got like this like very concerned, but also like ooh type of sound in my inflection, because I was like, yes, give my Ninja Boy some development, please.
Yeah, and like in Volume 4 when he had his whole thing with Kuriyuri, it was how Ren met Nora and all this other stuff. A lot of it was, I feel like Ren sort of had his backstory moment. And I don't know. I love Ren development. I'm not hungry for it, but I'll eat it. What I was really looking for, what I felt like we were all looking for in Volume 7 was some Nora sauce, some Nora development. Like there were so many theories about Nora, becoming the Winter Maiden, and maybe she's from Atlas, and maybe Fairy Frigga was her grandmother. Like, there was so much like Nora, tease in Volume 7 that kind of didn't really go anywhere. I recently watched a video. I know like the fandom was like kind of like oof, like she's in some shit right now. But Twins Inc. did a video about I forgot what it was about. It was about like imposter protagonist, and it was about how in Volume 7 Nora was getting all this sauce development, but instead of like Nora like doing some shit and going out and like confronting Robin, it was Blake and Yang, and Nora was kind of like robbed of that opportunity, and they just kind of gave it to Blake and Yang because they weren't really doing anything. I felt like Nora and Ren in Volume 7, their story should have been about them, or at least I felt like they were trying to do, was them finding their own individual identities
Mm-hmm.
and where they stood.
I did have this weird theory going into season 7 that like I like me and my buddies in the Tundra always like to like make our like predictions, like who do you think is gonna live? Is anyone gonna die? And if so, who do you think? I actually thought Nora was gonna die in season 7 because we all know that like Nora is based on like is based off of Thor, and if you know the legend of Thor, you would know that he died from scorpion poisoning. Who showed up in Atlas?
Tyrion.
I got so nervous when we saw Tyrion show up, and I was like, oh God, please. That's the only time I was hoping I was wrong, and thank Christ I
But
was.
see, that's the thing. Like Thor dies from poisoning after he kills the actual beast, the scorpion that he fights. So it's basically like if that actually happens, like that means that Nora kills Tyrion, and then she dies from Tyrion's poisoning. So they both die. And in a way, as scared as I am of that, I would be like, that would be interesting to watch.
That'd be very interesting.
Like, why would Nora kill Tyrion? Would Tyrion kill Ren first, and then basically Nora goes extremely angry, goes on a range, and they basically both Ren and Nora die, but Tyrion dies too.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of Ren and Nora dying together.
Ideas, please.
Oh, the angst.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of talk of Ren and Nora dying together because Ren is based off Mulan. So like for years I've been hearing the theory that like Nora is going to die of poisoning, and then since in Mulan she killed herself, Ren is going to kill himself because he can't be in this world without Nora. Which like that's so sad. Please don't be true.
I really hope they don't pull direct inspiration from the legends. I really hope.
I don't know.
But then
In terms of poly ships, though, like Ren and Nora and John, like make it happen.
yes,
Tragedy trio.
Yeah.
Paulie Jr. is nice.
I'm just like, okay, Pierre's not around. They literally said they both love John. Like, just let John come into the relationship and
Yeah.
do what it do. Like, have them be around each other. But I guess how have we been on here? Let me check my timestamp thing.
3 hours.
Oof, actually 3 hours. Oof, this is gonna be a nightmare to like render. It's gonna be a
We are
rendering
very passionate about
nightmare.
fictional characters
Oh,
having
yes.
relationships with
That's my
each other.
Always.
brand.
It felt like an hour though.
Exactly.
It feels like it's only been an hour, but
Right?
it's been 3. I don't know. This was fun. I definitely want to do this again and like talk about like other things because I feel like we all have a lot to
After
say.
the beast become canon.
I feel like we all have a lot to say about other aspects of the show.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
I guess to wrap it up, like, do y'all have anything else y'all want to say about like a specific ship or like a specific topic of a ship or whatever?
Stand Bumblebee, y'all.
Yeah.
Honestly, stand it. Like we have no choice.
What's the name of that like Cardin and Velvet ship again?
I don't know if they
Animal
have a
abuse?
name.
Oh god.
I
That's
don't know
what I
what
call
it is, but like
Toradana.
We
You're
didn't.
not wrong,
Y'all,
you're
wait,
not
no,
wrong.
we didn't talk about Velvet and Yatsuhashi.
I'm not that beat up about it. Like honestly, like so long as I'm spreading the good word of the tried and true Cinnabunny, my job is done.
Okay,
But
okay.
I will say this for like
If
anyone who does ship like Cardin and Velvet, I tolerate it. I don't hate you, but please just as long as we can both agree that Velvet deserves to be happy.
I don't. I disagree. I feel like anyone who ships Cardin and Velvet, I don't think you're a horrible person because again, I fucking ship Deku with his bully. So like, I don't, you know.
Same.
But the thing is, with
It's
Cardin and Velvet, Cardin is a fucking racist. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I have a thing.
And
I don't like when like people who are like bullied and victims of racism fall in love with their oppressors. I think that's really weird and gross, especially when their oppressors don't have to do anything for for the victim to attraction. Like if like it's different if like the person if, like Weiss like. I love we Weiss stands, but in Volume 1, she was low key racist. But she changes and now she's a better person. So now I don't care that if she gets with Blake. But like, if Weiss was just continuing to be a horrible, disgusting racist, and Blake was like, "Wow, Weiss, you're really hot." Like, no, I'm not here for it. I'm not down for it. That's gross. That's so triggering. I
Yeah.
don't. Not, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
So if you're a
If you want to
Cardin and
see
Velvet shipper, like the only way that I like accept that is if like off screen while Beacon was falling, Cardin just became a better guy. That's not racist.
right, like with
if you
Bakugo,
want to
he's a good
see
person actually, and you can't really compare Bakudeku with whatever the ship name between Cardin and Velvet is because Bakugo is actually a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I will say this: if you do, this is just like me having to do the shill thing too, because I sincerely love this dude's work. But if you want to see like an actual like Cardin and Velvet kind of ship, kind of workout, I highly recommend you look into Raymond McNeil's fixing series.
I love his series.
I know. I can't wait. I can't wait for volume 4, part 2, fixing RWBY to come out. My body is ready.
Body is ready. Celtic Phoenix, oof, he does work. He does work, honestly. And I don't know what anyone else does anyone else wanna have any more closing thoughts about shipping and like the ships?
Be nice. Don't be an asshole. Don't be problematic.
Yes.
Amen.
That's all.
And if you are problematic and if you are wrong, let's have conversations as long as it's not like horrible. Like, let's have conversations. Let's all lift each other up. I don't mind educating people if they're willing to be educated. That's what I'll say. Be nice to everyone. Don't ship shame. Unless it's like a horrible, disgusting ship. Like, don't ship shame. Don't ship shame. Like, be nice to
Basically, anything
everyone.
with Adam in it, just no, just
Ooh.
no. Like you're allowed to like other ships. But, like if you like any Adam ship, like,
Call them
bruh,
out.
What about
really.
like Adam and what's his name? Son. What about Adam and Son?
It's
Oh, I
completely
remember
correct.
that.
Adam in the bike.
Yeah. Adam and
Adam in the
Bumblebee the
bike.
bike. Yes, that's OTP.
That's best
Period.
ship.
Best ship.
Part of me feels like Adam's corpse is like slowly rotting away in the water with the bumblebee bike.
Exactly. See, they have a happy ending. They have a happy
Like
ending.
they're.
They're together forever.
Part of me feels like the
Right.
bike is rusting and Adam is decomposing. Like they're next to each other.
The bike deserve better.
I don't know, but yeah, but just be nice to everyone. Justice for Ilya Amatola. Hopefully she gets with Sheep Girl.
Yes.
Yeah. Wise.
Robin. Yes, fucking okay. I know. I said I was ending it, but fucking Ilya and Weiss. I shipped them all Volume 5. I was so mad that we didn't get a
Yeah.
moment with them in Volume
Yeah.
6. I was so
Yeah.
upset. I was like, why are you not bringing Ilya to Atlas? Like, literally, my fantasy was Ilya and Weiss raiding Stream Manor and, like, low-key destroying
Oh,
Jacques
yeah.
together. Honestly.
Burn it to the ground.
Burn it to the ground. And, like, when Blake was in the mine, she thought about Ilya, and it was so sad, and I cried. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Ilya. I don't know. Anyway.
That's a wasted opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, it was. They really should have brought Ilya to Atlas because there was so much she could have done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much she could have done. But all in all, I mean, we all could sit here for another 3 hours. But I'm sure it's late for
Yes.
really late at night for some of these people. So I'm gonna let y'all go. Thank y'all for coming and sitting here and talking with me about fictional relationships. I'll definitely see if we can do this again about other topics.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
All right. Do I have a channel? I do have a channel outro. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. This has been Maxwell Comics Inc. I'm your host, Maxwell. May the power protect you. Goodbye.